Good morning, everybody. Let's take our seats. We do have a quorum. Okay, the September 26th Board of Directors meeting is called to order. First, I would like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
This is the voice of the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting scrolls are. Click on the interpretation icon, the world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, 3 dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días, aviso por la intérprete. Para hacer el uso de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish, español, si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc. Presione los puntos suspensivos, 3 puntos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de la reunión, favor de pedir los auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay Digueño, the Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Michael, can you please confirm quorum?
We have a quorum, Chair, with the cities of La Mesa, National City, Oceanside, Santee, and Vista absent, and Chula Vista absent.
Very good. Let's move on to non-agenda public comment, please.
For the purpose of civility and an orderly meeting, we kindly ask that you refrain from using loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language. Per our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. Based on those factors, the chair has determined that today's meeting, members of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. We have 3 in person and 4 online, Chair. And
Okay.
first it would be Truth, followed by allegedly Audra.
All right, I saw a guy urinating on some SANDAG bike lockers. That seems like a perfect metaphor for how people feel about SANDAG. I demand every clerk at every meeting publicly announce the speaking time before every item for those participating by phone and for those with impaired vision. To not do so is not ADA compliant. I again call for the dissolution of the Public Safety Committee costing us $400 a meeting. The last meeting was only 1 hour and 22 minutes, yet more than 60 seconds couldn't be spared for the lone commenter, yours truly. Yet there was somehow plenty of time for Kevin's whining about ICE. He suggested law enforcement shouldn't do their jobs if it doesn't feel right. That's how officers end up dead. You go on what the law is, period. If your feelings are getting in the way of facts and the judicial system, you don't belong in law enforcement or government. More psychosis. Not only did Carolina lie about August 28th being fresh air for Imperial Beach, but she showed complete disrespect and disgrace by walking out during a German in memory of Charlie Kirk. Shame on her. If murder of Americans is what she supports, no wonder she lies for Mexico. And why is she always late? Speaking of which, here's a conversation from April 2nd about the hijacked SB-10.
make.
This is the first international border crossing in the United States history that's being built by somebody other than the federal government. I've tried not to buck that process.
Why not buck the process? If we're saying that this toll road will bring environmental impacts and not a lot of benefit to Imperial Beach, why are we supporting it? Buck the process.
Why didn't she buck it when she was at the March 22nd, 2024 Borders Committee on day 820 of beach closures? Instead, she got her photo op for the new SR-11. But today's Paloma's chance to flip-flop back instead of telling IB to buck off. And I tested the Chula Vista shuttle, the positive, it's clean, the negative, not every stop has a bench, and waiting at a sign with no scheduled times means it's a mystery when one will get a ride or miss the last ride of the day. It makes financial sense if Gaylord Hotel fees pay for it, but if not, it's a waste of tax dollars when there's a thing called buses available. Thank you.
Next is Allegedly Audra, followed by Arun Prune.
All right, I told you guys this last time and you continued to silence my speech, which we know Charlie Kirk was murdered, assassinated for speaking the way that he does. And the more that you guys continue to encroach on free speech, whether or not you think it has to do with this board or not, doesn't matter. But I told you, you will continue to hear the video that I'm going to play over and over until you guys decide to talk to your clerk and make sure that it's not being silenced online. So it's up to you guys, again, to decide how many times you want to hear Malaika and Zaya Robinson crying when they're being ripped apart from their family because they have been kidnapped by the county of San Diego and they are being held hostage right now on their way to be adopted out. So either you guys do something about your clerk, or again, you're going to hear it over and over and over again. Oh my gosh, and now it's not even working. You're doing that. You guys seem to be gluttons for things like that, which is super weird. I don't understand it. You need to do something about your clerk.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Arun Prem, followed by Doreen DS Online.
Morning, SANDAG board, staff. I'm Arun
Could you fix the
Prem.
microphone, please, staff?
Um,
Go ahead.
20 years ago, in 2005, a FACT was created with the help of NCTD staff and some elected officials who realized that transportation was not reaching people who are frail because of their abilities or because they were outside the reach of the public transit services. And they had this vision to create a service that would be available for everyone who was falling through the cracks and to fill the gaps between San Diego's transportation services. I'm very pleased and proud to announce that FACT is turning 20 years old, and we have accomplished that goal by covering the county with our services with the limited resources that we have. I'm also very pleased to invite all of you to some events that are coming up this year in celebration. Beginning with October 30th, we will launch Ride Fact Now service, which is on-demand countywide transportation at the San Diego Civic Center. On November 20th, we will showcase FACT accessible vehicles, 9 brand new vehicles we acquired with federal funding and that are operating in San Diego now. Also, on December 3rd, we will have our annual board meeting and the celebration of the 20th anniversary. You should have received a save the date notice for it. Please contact me if you haven't. I look forward to seeing all of you and your participation in all of these events. Thank you.
Next is Doreen Diaz online, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hello, Doreen Diaz-Pesta, and Doreen Diaz-Pesta from Hamershot community within city of San Diego. I had had several written communications with Deputy Director Scott Dashner from SANDAG, Brenda Maldonado, Operations Director, beginning October 29th, 2024, about the inaccurate maps that SANDAG is using. These maps have a false community called Hamish Alameda, which does not exist. The Skyline Paradise Hills community plan has a community called Hamishaw, 1 of 6, and a community called Lameda, 2 of 6. They are completely separate communities. The SANDAG map has merged these completely separate communities and completely separate boundaries. And I received an insulting email of an explanation of a planning group, which I had been one on several years, as if I had no idea what a planning group was. But the planning group boundaries and the neighborhood boundaries are fine. It's the issue of SANDAG, City of San Diego maps, including their ZAP zoning and parcels, the SANGIS, ADU bonus. I spoke at many city council meetings and nobody has taken action. You should be embarrassed that you have maps with made up community names. But because nobody seems to care about District 4, you haven't fixed it. Councilman Foster did fix his community map and it does not match any of your maps. And I'm getting pretty fed up. You'll hear from me at every meeting.
Thank you. Next is Paul the Bold, followed by phone number 8813.
Good morning, Paul the Bold. Calm down, Doreen. A lot of the maps don't even show East County, so a few inaccurate names probably they don't care about anyway. The agenda is a bit better than last time. Item 3.3, the Transcendent Active Transportation Grant Program Amendment, deserves to be a discussion item. Why all the extensions of time? That should be explained. And quarterly progress reports and budget update deserves to be a special separate discussion item. Not sure why these are on consent. The primary goal of a public meeting should be not to rush through the schedule for a canceled committee meeting. More clawbacks in the news. According to Bloomberg, the Trump administration canceled grants for street safety measures, pedestrian trails, and bike lanes in communities around the country this month, each time offering a simple rationale for yanking back federal aid. The projects aren't designed for cars. We told you, people do not use bike lanes and they are of arguable safety to cars, pedestrians, and the bicyclists themselves. A San Diego County road improvement project, including bike lanes, appears to reduce lane capacity and a road diet that is hostile to motor vehicles. And that's a U.S. Department of Transportation official who wrote that, rescinding a $1.2 million grant had awarded nearly a year ago. And,
Thank you, Paul. Your time has expired. Next is phone number ending in 8813. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, Consuelo here. So a reminder, every word and vote in this room is either building freedom or building a cage. And that's not an exaggeration. That's reality. Right now, in this room, decisions are being made that will decide whether human beings remain free people or become scanned, tagged, and managed like inventory. Some of you know exactly what you're signing. Some of you don't. Some of you are awake enough to feel the unease. And some of you are just filling a role, nodding along, pushing buttons, voting yes, because that's what's expected. If you're in that second group, hear this clearly. You are helping build a surveillance state, a digital IDs, constant tracking, biometric scoring, human beings treated as data points, as livestock. This isn't smart policy. This isn't modernization. This is control. And it will not spare you, your families, your neighbors, any of your loved ones. Your decisions here at SANDAG are wiring a world where freedom is not inherent, but rationed, where every movement is scanned, scored, and approved or denied by systems you quietly enabled. Some of us will not comply. Some of us will not be barcoded cattle. And when the history of this moment is written, your names will either be remembered as the ones who stood up or as the ones who quietly sold out their own communities, families, and species. This is what you all are really doing here. Done.
Our last public comment is Cesar Javier. Go ahead, Cesar. Oh, it looks like you. Cesar, go ahead. You seem to be self-muted, Cesar, if you want to press the unmute button there on your screen. Sorry, Cesar, we'll come back to you, try again. Maybe you can submit your written comments by emailing the clerk at sandag.org. And that concludes our public comment, Chair.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any non-agenda member comments at this time? I see none. All right. So a couple things. First, I'd like to announce for our agenda that item 3.3, the Transnet Active Transportation Grant Program project amendment for the city of Carlsbad will be pulled from today's agenda and deferred to a future meeting. Next, I'd like to begin by welcoming Poway Councilmember Chris Pikus. Welcome to your first SANDAG Board of Directors meeting. You're welcome. You're welcome. We're glad to have you, and we look forward to your insights and collaboration. I'd also like to acknowledge that today is California Native American Day. This is an important time to honor the culture, history, and contributions of California's indigenous peoples. Here in San Diego County, we extend our deepest respect and gratitude to the tribal nations whose heritage, wisdom, and resilience continue to guide and enrich this region. On this note, I want to share that we have received a formal written request from the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association for voting membership on this board. SANDAG staff is preparing an analysis of what this request would entail, and we plan to bring the item to the executive committee and the full board later this fall. I'd also like to recognize that Hispanic Heritage Month began last week. This is an opportunity to celebrate the many contributions of the Hispanic community to our region and beyond. I'd also like to remind everyone that we're seeking applicants for iTalk membership. Applications are available on the SANDAG website. And speaking of iTalk, I'd like to recognize Les Hopper, a 5-year member of the iTalk. Les, could you please join me at the podium?
Hey, thanks for walking all this way.
Steps in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yes. Well, I'd like to share with everybody that Les joined iTalk in 2020, serving as a licensed engineer representative. Throughout his term, he provided valuable expertise in transportation project design and construction, ensuring that voter mandates under the Transnet ordinance were carried out as required. He also worked collaboratively to develop constructive recommendations that have strengthened the financial integrity and performance of the Transnet program. Les, on behalf of the Board of Directors and iTalk Chair Frank Rivera, we thank you for your outstanding service and wish you the very best in your next chapter. Here is a plaque for you, and we'll take a few photos as well.
Ooh, nice.
There you go. This way. Thank you. And if you'd like to make a few comments as I walk back to the front of the room.
Chair Huebner. Wow, so this is my first time in the new boardroom, and it's really nice to see a lot of familiar faces that I've known through my whole career. So very nice to be here. As I think you all know, the Transnet ordinance is incredibly important to our region, and it's been a true honor for me to serve on the iTalk committee for all these years. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a heartfelt thanks to my fellow committee members, and there's been a number of them. 5 years went in a hurry. And also our liaison group from SANDAG, Michelle and Susan, Vanessa, Adrian. It's just been a pleasure working with all them. And as I said, super important committee, and keep up the good work. And thank you so much for this recognition. Very unexpected and much appreciated.
Wonderful. So do make announcements at your council meetings for this opening that we have at iTalk, because it's a super important organization or a committee for us to help us do our work. So a quick reminder also that we will have a 5th Friday board meeting next month on October 31st. So make sure that's on your calendars. And our time certain end times will continue to be 1:30 p.m. through the end of the year if you missed the announcement at the last meeting. So thank you. And I'll now turn it over to Mario for his update.
Good morning and thank you, Chair. A couple of updates. We continue our engagement with our different partners and stakeholders. Yesterday, we held a working a roundtable discussion with the city managers of all the different cities were invited. And it's a very robust conversation, as well as our partners at MTS, North County Transit was also invited, the airport, Caltrans, and it's just a great settings where we hear from the city managers what's going on in each of your cities and trying to understand how we connect our missions and how we leverage each other on helping getting mobility moving forward, as well as some housing discussions. So that was a great discussion. We have that informal discussion every quarter, and it's just hearing everybody and seeing what's going on. We also had some great opportunities to present at SDMAC. SDMAC is the San Diego Military Advisory Committee. It's a great committee where the military family, present and past, comes together and figure out how to help our military members and those who served. And mobility is an important piece of that. So it's important that we're there. Some of our team members also were in the Orange County, LA area, attending a mobility conference for Southern California. Very important for all our partners to engage and exchange ideas and information. During the summer, we had, together with the chair, also multiple meetings with state representatives, as well as some of our congressional members. So that was very fruitful. Also, our elected representatives, both in Sacramento and Washington, are eager to help us, and they want to hear what our needs are. So that's also very important. Monday, I'll be going to Sacramento for a stakeholder roundtable on Senate Bill 375 reform. This is what I've been mentioning to the board, that the 4 MPOs, bigger MPOs in California, got together, and we have been having discussions of how can SB 375 get a little bit updated. It's been 18 years since it's been enacted, and we do want to get a better environment in California, but looking at the good things that have happened and the elements that can probably be tweaked to be able to allow us to move forward with that goal. In that token, Assembly Member Alvarez dropped a bill for next year on Otay Mesa East, the enabling legislation. This bill is still very on the draft stages. We will be talking more with the assembly member and we will be bringing a report. But the goal of the bill is more than anything to help the future generations, not the current efforts for Otay Mesa, but the future generations of whenever this port needs to be expanded or something has to happen within the port, safety equipment partnership with CBP, how can those partnerships be enhanced? So we're still working on that. It's a draft, and once we have more information, we'll bring it to the executive committee. I highlight this on the joint PAC meeting last week, but it's important to highlight that the federal government is discontinuing the Clean Air Vehicle Decal program starting next Wednesday, October 1st. Solo drivers in clean air vehicles will no longer be able to access HOV lanes for free. So we encourage solo drivers to consider opening a fast track account for those ones who utilize in San Diego County the I-15 express lanes. That's something to be taken into consideration. Last week, we celebrated the accomplishment of employer commuter program with the Diamond Awards. And that was a very nice event. We want to thank Mayor Duncan Ehlers for joining us to that event. It was held here in this room. And we celebrated and recognized 135 employers, private, public, military, who have been working on our multiple programs for ride sharing. So thank you for that. And there were some great achievements that were achieved, sorry for the redundancy, during the past year. Today, you'll be hearing the regional plan. There are multiple updates. I was presented to the joint committees last week. And I think one of the things I just want to highlight is that the federal government recently took action to make California version of the air quality model. The waivers were taken out. So right now we're working with the state and with our federal partners on seeing how this could or not affect our RTP on the federal side. We think we have a path forward, but Antoinette will touch more on this during her presentation. Again, you know, we have been here before. We know how to navigate. The team is well versed, and they'll be presenting. We have a path forward, and it's something that we also discussed with the city managers yesterday. And again, this is a statewide challenge. It's not a SANDAG challenge by itself. I just want to also let you know that we released the draft climate action roadmap that's developed by SANDAG and all our partners. This is a long-term vision for reducing climate pollution in GHG in the region through 2045. I think it was mentioned in one of our meetings, hey, are you considering in the RTP energy solution, building solutions? And we mentioned that those actions are being looked at this climate action plan. So we are putting out the draft. We are seeking comments. It's open up to October 17 for comments. So we are hoping that we can get a lot of those ones presented or to us. And this climate action roadmap, the draft will be presented at Regional Planning Committee next week. And also, as a final couple of notes, something very encouraging, the FRA released a notice of funding opportunity for the Federal State Partnerships Program. This is for inner city passenger rail, only heavy rail, in the tune of $5 billion. That's a huge, huge notice of funding opportunity for the entire United States. So we're really working on connecting with our partners to see what are the best opportunities for the region and bring it to your consideration so you approve us going forward with that. Also, congratulations to North County Transit on their 50th anniversary. There will be some events happening this weekend. So again, congratulations. And finally, on a somber note, we want to express our condolences to Caltrans in Contra Costa. An employee lost their lives doing work And this beyond just providing our heartfelt condolences to the Caltrans family, I want to also highlight for all of you who have a public works department, a traffic department, that doing work at the roadways is dangerous, and everybody has to be alert. And it's public workers are always exposed. So, please have that in mind when you're making policies, decisions. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for that acknowledgement of those dangers. Okay, we'll now move on to consent agenda. Michael, do you have any public comments on consent?
We do. We have 2 in person and 3 online. And we'll go with Truth, followed by allegedly Audra.
Item 3.1, there was zero reason why the short last item of the day couldn't have been before the 2-hour, 14-minute long closed session in the middle of the meeting. I demand proper meeting order from this chair. Item 3.2, when this delayed $92 million border to Bayshore project finally opens decades from now, I demand 3 simultaneous grand openings, 1 in Imperial Beach, 1 in National City, and 1 in San Isidro. Since CoStar has a monopoly contract on all data, it sounds like we can blame CoStar for the many times SANDAG's forecasting modeling have been wrong. $21 million on the child trafficking pass could have paid for public transit security. Noted $8 million dangerous traffic circles, $8 million dangerous traffic circles in Carlsbad. Noted the $660 million unnecessary Hassan-era bus stopover in downtown. Noted human traffickers, Jewish Family Services having any contract with SANDAG. On May 2025, it says Tom Goggin had a transaction over $10,000, but his transaction amount totals $941. What does that mean? The total cost of 3 months of 19 SANDAG public meetings was $10,816. Why are hour-long public safety meetings costing a record $400 each? Item 3.6, why Allison on the audit screening committee? No to Rolando Charvel because he's been there the entire time SANDAG has been mismanaged. Item 3.7, on the Elvira to Morena double tracks project under Midcoast Transit. In 2018, the wall was installed. By 2022, NCTD saw track settlement. In 2023, Group Delta and HDR said only a max of 5 inches more will occur. Yet in 2024, the data confirmed slope movement necessitating immediate action. By April 2025, the wall was in a state of failure. Why did SANDAG wait until May 21st to pay $2.9 million to Cordon Johnson for emergency stabilization of retaining wall 508? Was this overpriced, shoddy work, thanks to the PLA with the Building Construction Trades Council, that SANDAG wasted our tax dollars on? And no to over $366 million in bike projects for the 1%. No Zito biplanes.
Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Paul the Bold online.
Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. It's funny you guys do a, pledge to one nation under God, and you guys don't even represent that because you guys talk a lot of lies and, put people on the back burner to save a planet and a climate. And, you guys increase the cost of living with everything that you do, but you don't ever do a study. Like Mario, I would like to ask you to do a study on geoengineering and weather modification, because if you guys honestly care about that kind of stuff, it would bother you that that's going on and that they're manipulating the weather, that they're spraying things above us that is detrimental not only to human life, but to the planet. And it's like you guys sit here and there's an agenda at play. That's why all of this is about control. It doesn't have anything to do with saving the planet because it's contradictory, the things that you guys implement to actually saving greenhouse gases and stuff like that. But when you tell people try and incentivize them to even get electric vehicles, and then all of a sudden now they can't use those HOV lanes. Well, what if that's why they got that car? You push people into this way of living, and then you even say like, well, even if we get them into electric vehicles, we still got to get them out of their cars. That's why people have to listen to the things that you guys say, and truth is so important to navigate this place. And it takes courage to stand out and be bold and not just go with the flow and do whatever you're being asked to do, whatever you're being incentivized to do. But it's better to be on the right side of things and the truth than to conform to this world and live for this world. I don't want to live for this world. There's no point in saving it, but there's a point in saving the people. And all of you guys make a choice every day that you're here. And if you can't see the writing on the wall, it's very sad to see, because what you are doing is you're engaging yourselves as well. But please look into geoengineering. Prove me wrong.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Paul the Bold online, followed by phone number 1642.
Yes, Audra, we definitely need to study on, or SANDAG definitely should study geoengineering, see what's actually changing the climate. You know, there are a lot of things
Please
I
identify
know.
what agenda topic you're speaking to.
Sorry, that was just a general comment on the last speaker. On the last mile thing, agenda item number 3.4 is wasted money. Train stations are dirty places mostly because of the trains, not the people. If you want clean trains, go hydrogen. Most of the stations already seem to be developed as transit hubs, so I don't know why we're wasting our tax money on this. If you want to optimize delivery to businesses, may I suggest airdrops or maybe baggage containers on the trolleys to replace all those empty seats. The biggest disruption of the supply chain is that the train is too close to the ocean to avoid erosion, and also blockages by landslides. I keep telling you, move the track to the I-15 corridor to Oceanside, and then use the light rail corridor from South Oceanside and up through the Duluth area with spur tracks as necessary. Somewhat more expensive, but it lasts a heck of a lot longer. Save our tax dollars. This routing will enhance train connections with the native tribes as well. Too bad they aren't here to vote for it. Am I right, Mayor Jones? But I'm glad to hear that their being on the board is in process. 3.5, old info from June in the financial report. A lot has happened since June, the main one being a Fed rate cut. The overview ends of the financial outlook remains uncertain. Easier to say, but buckle down to get the budget in order. Stop spending money on.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is phone number ending in 1642, followed by Blair Beekman.
Okay, so yeah, so this board is supposed to steer our county, but some of you are asleep at the wheel and while the ship hits the iceberg. Okay, so let's start with the consent calendar, specifically the approval of meeting minutes. These meeting minutes now include roll calls, great, which means we can see exactly who is chronically absent, and that matters. You are here to represent your constituents, your neighbors, your families, your communities. Every absence, every unengaged vote, every rubber stamp action is a failure of that duty. And yet, while some of you are absent or disengaged, others spend our money on projects that won't serve everyone. Bike lanes, most people can't use, initiatives that look good on paper but ignore real needs. Meanwhile, so many in this county are truly struggling. Your choices, your lack of attention, and your misplaced priorities are felt in homes and streets everywhere in our county every day. You behave as though you're working for the people, but you're not. You're the orchestra playing while the Titanic sinks. You sign off on budgets, on minutes, on policies, while real crises are ignored. Some of us are not going to comply, as you have heard. And we're not going to stand silent. So just get used to that and know that there are so many more people waking up. And I just feel sorry for the ones who, for some of you who are just continuing to go along with this. So yeah, that's what I have to say regarding the consent calendar.
Thank you. Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Cesar Javier. Last public comment, Cesar Javier.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Thanks for seeing my hand. It takes a bit of time to raise my hand when you ask for public comment over Zoom, so thank you that you saw it. I tried to raise it within a reasonable time, and you answered me. Thank you. Hi to everyone. Happy Friday. I guess a few house cleaning items. I'm in agreement that the closed session meeting during the middle of the meeting last week was really cumbersome for the public, who are attending, and to have to, be at the meeting and then have to wait an additional hour or two is a big pain in the butt. And good luck how to address the future of a more efficient closed meeting agenda item session. And to also offer thank you that for the report outs from the CEO and such this morning. When you have those report outs, I mean, they're often long and detailed, and at this time, at consent calendar time, it would be a really important time to allow for public comment on those things in the future. And you have been nice at that, but just a reminder of that good intention and good purpose. Okay, with house cleaning items talked about, I wanted to also wanted to quickly offer a thank you to Audra for her public comment. In that, there were people within SANDAG, your board of directors, who, after the January 2024 flood events, they wanted a bit more information. What was the weather patterns going on? What was the thinking in the weather patterns going on around the January 24th events? She offered an interesting idea on how to address issues that I think definitely is merited. And thank you for her words. And good luck that we are working on a lot of auditing issues on this item and financial forecasting. Good luck to really review those, we study those, and work towards a good future together.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our last public comment, Cesar Javier. Be sure to press the unmute button on your device or press *6 to unmute. You press *6 to unmute your device, Cesar. All right, please email your comments regarding public comment to clerk@sandag.org. Thank you. That concludes our public comment, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, are there any board member comments on consent? I see no. Okay, yes, First Vice Chair LaCava.
Just real quick, Chair. Thank you, Mayor Snow. Rolando Chardell is going to be an excellent addition to your committee, so thank you for selecting him. And I thank him for his willingness to serve. He's obviously a very busy individual, but this is an important assignment on the steering committee. So with that, I'm happy to move the consent items.
Very good. Moved by LaCava. May I have a second? Second by Chavez. Please use your devices to vote. 1 means yes, 2 means no, no, and 3 is abstain.
And this is items 3.1 through 3.7 minus 3.3.
Very good. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, that passes unanimously of those present. And we will now move on to the SR11 and OMI Port of Entry project updates. The team is going to present item 4.1, and I'll pause for technical questions. And then we're going to move on to item 4.2, followed by public comment and member discussion. Maria, you're going to start us off.
Good morning. My name is Maria Rodriguez Molina, and I serve as the Director of Mega Projects Border and Goods Movement. Joining me today, I have Andrea Hoff, our Border Region Delivery Manager, and Ali Divo, our Principal Design Manager. We're very excited to share that we have now secured all necessary agreements and funding to begin construction of the Alta Mesa East Port of Entry. If the board directs us to proceed to construction today, we anticipate that phase 1 of the Port of Entry will open early 2028. With all facilities in place for northbound passengers and cargo processing. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to our federal partners at General Service Administrations and Customs and Border Protection for their continued support during the design of the project and now moving into construction. So we're here now for 2 key items. Item 4.1 is the approval of construction contract and work package 1. Item 4.2 is consideration of designing SANDAG, designating SANDAG as the building authority for the POE. Let me elaborate briefly on 4.2. Typically, ports of entry are built by general service administrations, which also acts as its own building authority. In this case, however, SANDAG is constructing the port of entry. After evaluating several options, our recommendation is for SANDAG to act as the building authority on this project, supported by experienced consultants who have worked on similar federal projects. Ali and Shelby will provide more detail on this item shortly. At this point, I'll turn it over to the team to provide a project update, walk through the contract services agreement and work package 1, and outline the next steps for the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, and good morning, Board of Directors. I'll start with a very brief project update. This is a $1.3 billion corridor project that consists of approximately 2 miles of new highway connectors between the 125/905 and new State Route 11, a federal port of entry facility, and state commercial vehicle enforcement facility. Everything in dark blue, it looks black from here, has been constructed and is open to traffic. That includes several interchanges, bridges, and as you are aware, the essence of this project is to use dynamic tolling and technology to manage demand, improve security and efficiency, and facilitate trade. Here's a current snapshot of the funding picture. The crux of the project has always been to leverage non-recourse and toll revenue bonds to secure state and federal funding. And you'll see here significant portions of the project funding coming from state and federal sources. These next 2 pie charts provide a snapshot of our financial plan. On the left, you'll see elements that have already been constructed, right-of-way, the various connectors and the highway, approximately $635 million. And on the right is an image of our financial plan for the rest of the project. As you can see, a significant portion of the funding will come from 2 grants, which we have secured. The funding for our first construction work package has been approved by the California Transportation Commission and FHWA in August. And the remainder of the project relies on the sale of bonds, which we anticipate happening late 2026. I'd like to highlight some recent accomplishments, including the execution of our federal project agreement with our federal partners, GSA and CBP, and 2 subsequent donation acceptance agreements, which outline the conveyance of the facilities to our federal partners. We also opened the final segment of State Route 11 and the Siempre Viva Road interchange. Caltrans led a fantastic event to celebrate that project, which they have completed. And in addition, we have signed a necessary addendum to the binational toll allocation agreement as well in August, now having all funding and agreements in place to begin construction. I will turn it over to Ali to walk through the contract award.
Thank you, Andrea, and good morning, board members. So I will walk through the construction services agreement and work package 1, what we're asking for approval on today. To start off, I want to talk a little bit about the delivery method we're using for the project. So we selected the construction manager, general contractor, or CMGC delivery method for the Otime ACEs project. What this allows us to do is select a contractor based on qualifications rather than cost. We bring them on board prior to the construction phase, which allows early collaboration and ultimately allows us to jointly identify risks and ways to reduce them, establish cost certainty through estimates and cost reconciliations at various milestones, identify ways to accelerate the project schedule, improve constructability with early review of the design while changes are still able to be made, and ultimately negotiate the final cost of the work with the contractor. Also want to provide an overview of how we got here. So this isn't the first time we've come before the board to talk about the CMGC delivery method for Otay Mesa East. We came to the board in 2023 for authorization to use CMGC for the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. Upon approval, we then released the solicitation in June of 2024. In January of this year, the board authorized the award of the pre-construction services contract to our selected contractor, which is Atkinson Clark, a joint venture. From there, we began the pre-construction services phase of the project. We began negotiating the construction services agreement with the contractor. And then in May of this year, we initiated the first work package for the project. So we did that by issuing plans and specifications to the contractor and asked them to price that work package. There were negotiations in between May and June, and in June 30th, we reached an agreed to price with the contractor for work package number 1. And then today we're bringing the construction services agreement and work package number 1 to you for approval. So the first part of this item we're asking for approval of is the construction services agreement. This is the overall master agreement with the CMGC contractor that spans the life of construction. We began discussions on this agreement with the contractor as the project approached 95% design. The parties negotiated the CSA terms, including general contract provisions and the applicable federal requirements for the construction work. This agreement will last for 3 years, and throughout those 3 years, we will issue individual work packages under this agreement to authorize construction of the various components of the project. The total contract value of this agreement, including all work packages, will not exceed $450 million. The second part of the item brought forth for approval today is the approval of the first construction work package. So this construction work package includes fine grading of the project site, installation of perimeter construction fencing, so the temporary fencing that will be in place throughout construction, construction of the construction field office, so where the project team will be housed during the life of the project, installation of wet and dry utility pipes and conduits throughout the entire project site, and procurement of long lead time items like bollards and inspection booths. The total contract value is just over $100 million. This is about 2% below our engineer's estimate for this package of work. And there's a 22% goal for disadvantaged business on this project, and our contractor has committed to meeting that goal for this work package. And just a brief overview of the work package 1 negotiation process. As I mentioned, on May 1st, we issued these plans and specifications to the contractor for them to price. Between then and June 30th, we had several negotiation and cost reconciliation workshops to negotiate with the contractor and reach what we believe is a fair and reasonable price for the work. This next slide just shows a potential construction visualization for you. So we're still in conversations with the contractor about exactly how this work will be sequenced and how it will be built, but this kind of shows you how it could be constructed. So starting with our kind of fresh project site, first we'll go in and install deep utilities. So this is the sewer system. Next, we start with shallow utilities. So this is power, communications, and water lines. From there, we'll start building foundations and start the actual structures themselves, included the inspection booths, with a focus on the commercial vehicle northbound facilities. Again, focusing on those northbound facilities as they come out of the ground, starting the structural section for the pavement throughout the site, wrapping up that northbound commercial while we start the northbound passenger facilities in the middle. Then ultimately building those northbound passenger facilities out while we start the southbound facilities on the far left, and ultimately opening the project site to traffic. And I'll hand it back to Andrea for next steps.
Thank you, Ali. Some next steps we anticipate, subject to this body's approval, finalizing and executing the CMGC Construction Services Agreement and Work Package 1. Future work packages resulting from the negotiations will be presented to the board for review and approval. We're looking forward to executing several additional binational agreements and continuing to engage with the U.S. and Mexican federal governments to support the project's success. The item for 4.1 before you today is a request to authorize the CEO to award and execute the CSA and Work Package 1. With that, we'll entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, team. So board, do you have any technical questions only at this time? No commentary, just technical questions. I have our new council member Picus. Is it Picus or Picus? I think right.
It's Picus. I saw two numbers here for work package one. One was 450 million and one is 100 million. Which one are we being asked to authorize?
So I can answer that question. The 450 million is the total cap for the construction services agreement. So that's that overall agreement that all work packages are issued under. Today, we're asking to execute work package 1 for the $100 million.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Ehlers.
Yeah, I really appreciate this, understanding the initial work package, and I really appreciate the 450 million maximum contract. How many work packages are you anticipating? Is this the largest one? Typical? How are you splitting up all the rest of the work?
That is a great question. So we're still in scoping for all of the work package. We envision issuing 3 to 4, depending on how we end up sequencing the work. I'd say that this work package is not going to be the largest one. I think probably tentatively work package 3 would be the largest of the work packages, but it depends on how the sequencing and funding works out between those.
So you don't have anything yet firm as far as what the work packages would be, but I think you must have a rough idea.
Correct. We have a rough idea and estimate of the scope for each one, but we do negotiate that with the contractor based on what makes sense to keep the work moving as efficiently as possible. So,
And will you be able to share that work package breakdown maybe at a future meeting? And maybe at work package 2? At some point, if you only have 3 to 4, you're going to have it pretty well figured out. And I think it would help me understand the sequencing of the contract. So.
Yes, I think by the next work package that we bring forward, we should be able to provide more detail on what scope and maybe approximate budget would be included for the subsequent work packages.
Okay, thank you.
And just to take off on that question, Ali, so the visual that you show with everything adding on, that was all work package 1, or did that include? That was the entire thing, right? So that gave us kind of an indication of the sequencing of maybe some of these work packages.
Yes, that's kind of the potential sequencing as we're still in discussions, but that is kind of one potential route for the sequencing to go.
I think I'm going to provide a little bit of extra info without breaking the non-disclosure agreements the team has with the federal government. This is a very complex federal facility with high level of safety degrees. So the team has to be working with Customs and Border Protection, Homeland Security on different underground features that would allow communications between the employees, as well as many other safety and security features that affect the sequencing. And that also includes the ITS for either the operations and all that. So those are components the team is working with Homeland Security and figuring out with the contractor which ones go first, as well as the buildings. The entire facility is a very high security facility to the equivalent to a military facility. So a lot of those safety and security issues are taken into consideration, as well as cash flow. The team has signed non-disclosure agreements with the federal government because they're allowed to look at all that stuff and plan it. So that, among many other things, as well as our cash flow, is being taken into consideration for the different packages.
Thank you. Commissioner Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Got a question regarding, you make the statement here and you made it in your presentation that the total cost of all the work packages won't go over 450 million. And for the scope of work you just showed for the fine grading and the scope that you showed on the screen, about $100 million for the first package. You made the statement that the contractor is guaranteed not to exceed that amount. So my question is, what does that guarantee look like? Is that a GMAX contract that the contractor is entering into with SANDAG? And what happens if there are unknown conditions, if there are change orders, unforeseen work? How is this agency protected in those areas?
So we, as I said, we will negotiate the cost of work with the contractors we move through. So we are actively pricing based on our design milestones. Right now, we're at 95%. So we're undertaking a very large estimating undertaking with the contractor simultaneously. We're pricing that work as well. That'll really give us a better baseline as to what we think the full project cost is. We do have the ability to, potentially reduce scope if needed to stay within that amount. However, if we do encounter unforeseen conditions that go above and beyond our contingency, we would have to come back to the board for approval if we did, if it looked like we had to exceed that $450 million amount.
Okay, so is the answer to the question that it is a guaranteed maximum contract? In the industry, it's called the GMAX. So the contractor is guaranteeing the price.
No, we're trying to stay within the $450 million because that's the budgeted amount so far. From our engineer's estimate, we think we can stay within, but as you're totally right, things can happen. We have a hefty contingency. If it goes beyond our contingency, we would have to come back to the board and ask to amend the contract.
Okay, so I appreciate that. I guess just as a general concern for the board that, oftentimes, most of the time, as a developer myself, there are unforeseen circumstances, things happen. And I'm just concerned because, as you pointed out at the outset of your presentation, this is normally a facility that is constructed by the General Services Agency, GSA. The SANDAG has taken on the responsibility of this, so I'm just interested how we as a body are protecting ourselves. How I understand by working with the contractor early, by designing, those are ways to reduce risk, but ultimately, if there are unforeseen conditions, we're risk shifting from the federal government to us. How do we mitigate our risk so that we're not spending our own money, for some of these unforeseen conditions that probably will happen in this project?
I can begin addressing that issue. So again, the complexity of this project, you saw the pie chart with the different colors of money. Each color of money has a strategy or a mechanism that shifts that responsibility to different entities. And by no means I'm saying we're shifting it to somebody here or there, but I'll give you an example. In some of the colors of money from the state, the state joins with us on that responsibility. That's in the state allocated TCP colors of money. Again, I'm not saying we're going to go running for that, right? We're going to manage all this. So each color of money talks about how to deal with this. And like you specifically mentioned, how we're engaging early on, the CMGC toolbox, this methodology was selected to be able to minimize those issues, right? By bringing in the contractor and the designer early on to be able, as well as the owner of the facility, in order so we can identify as many of the potential risk. Granted that we don't have a crystal ball to figure out everything, but that's in infrastructure development. That's why you develop a contingency within your project, which this project has. So we have tried to work early on the major risk factors, and normally in an infrastructure project, your major risk factors are underground. And we have, this facility is a fill projects. So that actually helps us identify those potential risks. And also the heavy utility relocation has already occurred on early packages, which is normally also your heavy risk items. So we have taken care of the archaeological issues. We have taken care of the utility issues, the major utility issues, which was a very big gas line has already been relocated. So we're managing this. Is it 100% risk-free? No. And there's no single civil works project that's going to be like that. But the team has done a robust effort to try to bring in the tools to work early on and to try to identify as many as the potential risk and also park a contingency, a robust contingency to deal with any of the unexpecteds. That's pretty much, I don't know, Maria, if you want to add something.
And I thank you, Mario. That was very to the point. But if anything else would happen, we would start removing facilities.
Okay.
The goal is to open to traffic and we'll open a minimum facility.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I trust it. It's an ongoing iterative process. And, you know, if you see things are going awry and the contingency isn't enough, that scope of work is going to be looked at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Aguirre.
Thank you, Chair. My question's around the toll governance and that agreement pending. Is that going to come back to us for approval, or is that something that's already been, I'm sorry, because I've just started on the board, so.
That was already approved by the board. Maybe we can look up the date, but that was already approved by the board. It's just pending signature on the Mexican side. There was a change in administration and we were caught right in the middle of that change. So we are now engaging with our partners at SICT, and there are two agreements that have been approved but not signed yet.
So it hasn't been signed on their side?
Well, we need to sign on the same day, but
Oh, I
we're
see.
waiting for them to review it and proceed with this agreement.
And if there were to be amendments to that, what would be the mechanism for that?
We don't anticipate amendments, but if they were, we would come back if there's substantial amendments.
Not from them, from us.
Oh, from us. I think the board approved the agreements as they are right now.
So if we were to want to make amendments, it would have to come back to us.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Duncan.
Thank you. When looking on page 14 and regarding the construction work package, it mentions the contract value, but then it has another line. It says there's a 22% goal for disadvantaged businesses. And I believe you said that the contractor has agreed to that percentage. My questions are, how is that goal developed? Is it a state requirement, a federal requirement, a SANDAG, a multi-agency goal? And what is the definition in this situation of a disadvantaged business?
It is an FHWA requirement. We first developed here the goal based on the work that is being performed. And then it goes for review at Caltrans, and they have the final say on the number. It was reviewed by Caltrans. It was set at 22%.
Will you say it was set here based on the work to be completed? Is there any enlightenment you can give to me on like why is it 22%? I understand you decided it was 22%, but I don't understand exactly what that means.
Ali, do you want to go through?
Yeah, I can talk to you a little bit about the process. So what we do is we take the construction estimate for the work package. We identify what trades, what types of work are included in that package. And from there we translate that into work codes, which are the category codes used by the federal government in DB goal setting. From there, that identifies if there is a potential opportunity for a subcontractor to do that work. So it's kind of based on, are there subcontractors around that are able to perform that type of work? It's a yes or a no situation there. And then from there, it is a computation that we utilize a team for that's, it's based on the percentage of disadvantaged businesses that are that trade within a certain vicinity of the project. And basically it calculates that percentage based on the opportunities for DB subcontractors for the trades and the dollar amounts that are directly involved in the contract.
Okay, so I just have two final quick questions on it. So from what I'm hearing from you, it doesn't sound like it has a financial impact overall on the project, or am I mistaken? To have it go to disadvantaged businesses doesn't change the awards. It's just that certain businesses have to be qualified as a disadvantaged business in order to get those contracts.
Yes, it doesn't change the cost because we have the cost on the front end in terms of when we estimate that DBO, or at least our estimated cost for the work. And then the contractor has to bring on board disadvantaged business enterprises to do that work, to meet that goal. And they have the say in terms of which DBE subconsultant or subcontractors they bring on board to meet that goal. But ultimately it doesn't change the overall cost of the work.
Right, for that particular work even, not overall for the whole contract, right? So I got, the last thing is, again, what is the definition again of a disadvantaged business? I mean, we're giving almost a quarter of our contract to this category, so I would like to understand what it is.
Yeah. I'm going
See,
to
we're
ask
bringing our
Elaine to answer that question.
our Title VI coordinator for that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the question? I didn't hear. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
What is a disadvantaged business as the term is used in slide 14 for this large contract?
Okay, so the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise is a federal program, and it is based on those firms that are considered disadvantaged. There is women, and then there's 5 minority groups that make up this entire what we call the DBEs that we're going to look at, and look at, just like Ali was saying, about how they are broken down into all of the NAICS codes, et cetera. And we decide, and the contractor will decide what work will be given to them.
So the two main categories of what is a disadvantaged business is based off sex or race.
And there's social, economic, and also there's social, and then there's economic requirements too.
Okay. Like, what is a social requirement that would be taken into consideration for a disadvantaged business?
Social can be if there's a disability that would play into this. Also economic, they can't make so much, like, they can't make more than 31 million over 3 years, et cetera.
The size of revenue?
Yes.
All right, well, I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, nobody else is on the board, so, so we have Councilmember Pikus again.
Just a quick question. I was looking again at slide 6, and you estimate that there's still 699 million to be built with this contract. The contractor is, well, for the facilities are 450 million. Where's the other 249 million going?
There are other contracts that will come to the board. The tolling contract, so the roadside system that is going to be placed on SR 11 to collect the tolls on this facility. As my colleague mentioned, this is a dynamic tolling that will set the toll based on demand. And there are other contracts for technology as well. And then you have to add about 22% of soft costs, the support teams, inspection, construction management, the project management team, and all.
Maria, just a question for me, for the board. A lot of the equipment being acquired for CBP is a separate contract, like the NII, right? The
The NII,
non-intrusive
yes.
X-ray equipment. So those are heavy ticket items also.
Looks like you have a follow-up. You've got it. No? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay,
for that.
all right. Okay, we will now move on to 4.2, in that it proposes an ordinance to designate SANDAG as the building authority to support construction of the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. This is the first of 2 readings of the ordinance. The SANDAG Board of Directors will be asked to approve the proposed ordinance at the October 31st Board of Directors meeting, our fifth Friday. Please note the proposed ordinance is included in our agenda materials. Our Board Policy 4 requires that all ordinances to be read in full at the time of introduction or passage unless members of the board vote unanimously to waive the full reading. I will read the full title of the ordinance now. San Diego Association of Governments Building Code Ordinance, an ordinance adopting by reference the 2022 edition of the California Building Standards Code. Do I have a motion and a second to waive the full recitation of the ordinance?
So moved.
Moved by, second by who? Chavez. Very good. Okay, so let's vote to waive the reading. Oh. Everybody's don't vote, you're speaking. I've got everybody on the speaking thing.
Just a moment while we prepare the voting slide.
Okay.
And just to confirm too, the maker of the motion was Mr.
LaCava,
Thank you.
and the second was Chavez. Okay, tell us when, Michael.
We're good to go, Chair.
Okay.
Supervisor Aguirre, your vote, please, on the item.
Okay, that does pass unanimously. We will forego the reading of the entire thing. So now I'm going to turn it back over to SANDAG staff for their presentation of what we're into.
Thank you. As Maria had mentioned earlier, the second item we're here for is to ask for approval of, to conduct the first reading of the building authority, to ask for approval for SANDAG to serve as the building authority for the project. So I'm joined by Shelby Tucker, who's our legal counsel for the project, to present this item. So as I discussed in the previous presentation, we're gearing up to start construction on the project very soon. And although that first work package is focused on horizontal construction, soon we'll be gearing up to begin construction on the state and federal facilities, which entails vertical construction. To construct vertical facilities like the commercial vehicle enforcement facility and the port of entry buildings, we need to identify a building authority that will be responsible for enforcing the building code requirements, including such tasks as review of structural and fire life safety components, performing inspections, and ultimately issuing a certificate of occupancy for the structures. For state facilities like the commercial vehicle enforcement facility, Caltrans acts as the building authority through the Office of the State Fire Marshal and the State Architect. For port of entry facilities, which will be owned, operated, and maintained by the federal government, we not only have to adhere to local and state requirements, but also federal requirements. Therefore, state entities like Caltrans and local jurisdictions like the county do not have the expertise or ability to serve as building authority for these facilities. On similar ports of entry projects, the General Services Administration would normally fulfill this role. But since the port of entry buildings do not become federal facilities until they are gifted to GSA, they cannot act as the building authority for the Otay Mesa East project. Staff's conclusion is that it is in our best interest for SANDAG to act as the building authority for the project. This allows us to hire a consultant with expertise necessary to comply with local, state, and federal requirements and provide the approval and documentation necessary to ultimately turn this facility over to the federal government. One other important item I want to note is this is not the first time SANDAG has acted in this capacity. SANDAG successfully served as the building authority for the Mid-Coast Corridor Transit Project for a parking structure during that project. So I now will pass it over to Shelby, who will provide some additional detail on our recommendation.
Thank you, Ali. Good morning. I'm going to go for some of the mechanics of SANDAG becoming the building authority. Title 24 of the California Code of Regulation contains the building standards governing the design and construction of building occupancies throughout California. It's referred to as the California Building Standards Code. SANDAG can act as the building authority by adopting these standards. The proposed ordinance adopting the 2022 California Building Standards Code by reference is included in your agenda packet. Next steps to move us forward toward acting as the building authority include today's action of conducting the first reading. As required by Board Policy 4, we must complete all prerequisites necessary to adopt an ordinance, including preparing a summary of the proposed ordinance and publishing at least once in a local newspaper. We plan to conduct the second reading of the ordinance at the October 31st board meeting, holding a public hearing and requesting approval from the board. The ordinance will take effect 30 days after approval. That's the end of the item. We're happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good to see you, Shelby. It's been a while. Let's go first, before we go to our board questions, we're going to go to the public comments. Michael?
Yes, we have 5 in person. And just a second. Oh, and 5 online. So first in person, we'll go Truth, followed by allegedly Audra.
Here's the goods this project will really bring. Companies like Amazon making $3.5 billion a year by exploiting Mexicans living in slums, and residents in Imperial Beach dying early from Mexico sewage. From KPBS, there's been a decades-long stampede to Mexico since 1994, when Congress ratified the North American Free Trade Agreement, replaced by the similar U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement in 2020, which eliminated tariffs on most goods. The combination with Mexico's low wages made Tijuana an ideal location. Before NAFTA was the county's 1993 Otay Mesa East Pacific Plan, turning the area into an industrial hub, which included SANDAG creating this future toll road. We are here because the feds, the state, SANDAG, the county, and local cities all conspired to turn their backs on their neighbors and their country to benefit big corporations in their personal pocketbooks. While small businesses here in America are having their slave labor deported, the big corporations in Mexico are not. You cannot be pro-union and be pro-free trade. The county actually did an economic study on the sewage NAFTA ended up bringing last year, which said, quote, 74% of local businesses have been negatively impacted. 30% have laid off staff. 50% have lost more than $100,000. Imperial Beach has experienced $1 to $1.5 million in property tax damage, and loss for tourism is over $500,000 annually. Some businesses have been forced to close, and many residents have lost their livelihood, end quote. SANDAG's had since 2030 to be part of a solution. Why didn't the August addendum include accountability for Mexico that has failed to prioritize their infrastructure for 90 years? In 2022, it was Paloma's mentor, North County's Sir Jadina, who sold out Imperial Beach when he approved the original contract. How many treatment plants could this $1.3 billion project have paid for? This sounds like a blank check to disaster deja vu. Will SANDAG say no to spending more to finish this crossing when things go wrong? No. The DBEs in a certain vicinity near the project, does that include Mexico? No details.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Alejandra Miretiran.
All right, something that we're not talking about is the technology that's going to be used, because it's saying that the facility will deploy state-of-the-art technology to provide secure, predictable, and efficient crossing for passenger and commercial vehicles. It'll be a dynamic tolling management demand via dedicated access roads integrated with advanced technologies and intelligent transportation system to alleviate supply chain, all this, whatever. Palantir has been in San Diego for quite some time. Since 2016, I mean, the county has been spending millions on Palantir, and this is a predictive policing. This technology is something that has been when you put that with AI, it's very dangerous where this is leading. And this is going to be something, are you guys going to be having, biometrics? Because with the Fusion Center, using Gotham and Palantir for intelligence gathering and stuff, that people are always worried about ICE and their intelligence gathering. They don't even know about Palantir. And this is something that we should be concerned about, because the more that you say it's going to all this technology is going to benefit the people. Well, you don't really, it's just like a cell phone. Cell phones are great, but they're also really horrible. They keep people, distracted and different things. And It's just sad to see the encroachment of, the government and different things when they want to offer it up as such a beautiful thing. But in reality, it's to control the people. So eventually, is it going to be biometrics? Like, what kind of technology are you going to be using down there? How much is it going to encroach into San Diego where, we're not going to be able to do anything unless we show our biometrics? And it's going to be like our nice little communist China where, if your social credit score isn't good enough, you're not going to be able to go past that. So I think you guys need to be transparent as far as this technology goes so that the people can be aware, because Palantir's been here and it's been not something that the people approved, and it doesn't matter because it's here anyway.
Next is Alejandra Miritiran, followed by Miriam Mendoza online.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alejandra Miriteran. I'm the Executive Director of the Otay Mesa Chamber of Commerce. We are very excited to fully support the Otay Mesa East project and certainly the construction project being moved forward today. And I really want to thank you on behalf of the more than 20,000 employees in Otay Mesa. Their quality of life will improve by this project. It is the only project that will minimize wait times at our other ports of entry and will provide certainty to cross when we have an emergency. So that is extremely valuable, and it doesn't exist, and it will make a world of difference to our trade community, more importantly, to the quality of life of our workforce. Thank you so much.
Next is Miriam Mendoza online, followed by Doreen Diaz online.
Esteemed members of the board, my name is Miriam Mendoza, International and Policy Advisor for the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the over 2,000 members and 300,000 jobs across a variety of industries that the Chamber represents, we express our strong support for these items. The Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project will be the nation's first transformative land port of entry to integrate innovative technologies that improve regional security and safety, bolstered by national economic productivity by significantly reducing border wait times for individuals and goods, provide resiliency to the border network and community, enhance mobility and efficiency, and foster innovative technology solutions. The project will facilitate fast, predictable, and secure border crossings in a region that is a national gateway for more than $80 billion worth of trade. Not to mention that it will enhance community health by mitigating freight-related impacts within surrounding environmental justice community. The Chamber has been a voice to elevate this regional priority to Washington, D.C. and Mexico City for several years, and we are more than excited to see this project move forward. Please continue to consider the Chamber as a partner and resource to boost our region's global competitiveness and economic development. Thank you.
Next is Doreen Diaz online, followed by Blair Beekman. Doreen, go ahead.
Hesta, and I am a resident of Hampshire community within the city of San Diego. I oppose SANDAG spending any money on any project from now until after you ensure ADA access at all bus stops. This city, especially the city of San Diego, does not provide equity in communities of concern that are missing also environmental justice, and have residents that cannot get to their doctor's appointments on public transportation because of disabilities. They cannot go, mainly because the bus stops do not have ADA access in Hampshire. 9 out of 18 bus stops in Hampshire do not have ADA access. Every single morning, there is a senior citizen, one or more, sitting on the ground waiting for a bus because our bus stops don't have benches. If you don't have money for this, they should not be spending money on any other project so they comply with the federal ADA law. This 6% of this money, they should get other funds, other bonds, and take this 6% and spend it on ADA access as required by federal law. It really shows how much these elected officials do not care about people with disabilities by ignoring ADA access. I'm not opposed to anything any speaker has previously said if ADA access was at all bus stops. We don't have one single shelter out of 18 bus stops. So we need equity and justice from SANDAG and stop discriminating against people with disabilities.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks a lot for this item. Thanks for public comment. Yeah, from the previous public speaker, humanity. How do we talk about our humanity? Consuela at earlier public comment offered, how do we wake up in what we're doing? And working on our projects, how do we offer that additional sense of humanity and break out of our usual patterns and practices? It was mentioned by Mario that basically they're building a military fortress for this situation, and it's very difficult to better address sometimes. And what Audra has mentioned as well, how do we create a future? And then actually what I talk about a lot, how are we going to create a future of this technology area that's going to be, that has a sense of humanity, you know, that has a sense that we can have dialogue in the technology being placed. This can't just be an army operation and we're not allowed any sort of public comment, any sort of dialogue in the technology, the tons of technology that's going to be placed. I've spoken before about how places like Santa Clara County have worked much to, you know, their within their jail systems, they had, you know, surveillance technology and biometric tech that couldn't be a part of their technology ordinance issues, that they've worked really hard to become a part of the technology ordinance issues, that technology can be talked about openly and publicly. We can make those efforts, and we need to. It's vitally important to our future to have that sort of dialogue. It's humanity. It's a question of how do we bring a human element to this process? And I hope you can be talking in those terms today and always about this sort of item. Good luck in your work and our continued good relations with Mexico. Thank you.
Next is Paul the Bold, followed by our last public comment, 1672. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Paul Bold. The summary says that Atkinson Clark was selected through a best value procurement process to provide pre-construction services, apparently not screened for construction services. And for construction this important, you want something better than the best value process. I also think that the two proposals mentioned on January 10th when you hired Atkinson Clark are not enough for this important construction. I don't know if you did this already, but it sounds like the work in this work package is still a bit unplanned. So why shouldn't you add anticipated sequences and work of packages 2 and beyond? I mean, you know, bring a bit of light to this whole process. I'm glad the highway is open, but you can always demolish and repair, I guess. Like the SR11 when it joins, where it joins the future facility. Let's see. Ordinance number ORD 202601 seemed originally to quote and rely on an outdated CBSC code from 2022 to be updated effective in January 2026. So thank you for removing all reference to that particular edition. I'm not sure why you're waiting until October 31st for a second reading. That concludes my remarks, except that this.
Thank you. Your time has expired. We have 1672 online, which is Consuelo. A chair missed a speaker slip, and so we have Joaquin Lucan in person after.
Very good.
Go ahead, Consuelo.
Okay, Consuelo here. Yeah, amen to Doreen and Blair. Amen. Okay, so let's see. SANDAG is moving to designate itself as the building authority. That sounds harmless on paper, but yeah, just as a previous speaker mentioned, it's a blank check for power. We're talking about a $1.3 billion corridor project, $1.3 billion, holy fuck. That number should disturb every single person in this room, because while it's sold to us as helping people, it's not for help. Again, it's for control, it's for surveillance. If you were honest, your pie charts would include a sliver labeled exactly what it is. This is how we further cage the public. No more free-range humans. Soon it'll be entirely caged, indentured servants. It's nuts to listen to the way these presentations are delivered, meek, innocuous, like nothing is wrong, while massive, obscene sums are quietly diverted to projects that do not address the actual suffering we see every day. Walk through downtown, look at the mentally ill, the homeless, the families struggling. Hundreds of millions of dollars could directly serve them, but instead it's poured into infrastructure and schemes that tighten control. It's gross, it's disturbing, it's abusive and reckless. Spending dressed up as progress. Help the people, not the agenda, because this is a nefarious plan and it's happening in real time. People are waking up. Your choices here have real consequences for real people, and you can't hide from that. And if SANDAG and its members were truly innovative, truly concerned about the people of our county, they would do far better and be far more creative with the use of our money. Stop building cages, start serving the public. And to the ones believing this is a good thing, ain't no quality of life going to be improving. So get that mental slavery state out of your head, and clearly you're not paying attention. Wait.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our last public comment in person is by Joaquin Lucan.
Good morning. My name is Joaquin Lucan, and I'm the Executive Director for the Smart Border Coalition. And on behalf of our binational coalition of businesses, community, and civic leaders, I submit this comment in strong support for the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry project. This project is vital to the future of our Cali Baja region, where close to 200,000 people and billions of dollars in trade cross daily. Long wait times cost both nations millions of dollars in lost productivity and quality of life. The Otay Mesa East will relieve congestion, strengthen supply chains, and create a safer, more predictable border crossing experience for travelers and commerce alike. It will also enhance regional competitiveness at a time where the global trade dynamics demand modern infrastructure. With the upcoming USMCA agreement review, Otay Mesa East is a timely demonstration of our region's commitment to efficiency, integration, and innovation in trade and mobility. We commend SANDAG, Caltrans, and all federal and local partners for advancing this project. We urge the board to continue prioritizing and this timely delivery and ensure the necessary technology, staffing, and operational resources are in place to maximize its potential. Thank you for your leadership.
That concludes our public comment, Chair.
Thank you so much. Okay, on to board comments, and we'll start with Councilmember Fisher.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Maria, and to the team. Again, it's always good this year. We've seen a lot of progress with this project moving forward, which is encouraging to me because we've had another summer pass in Imperial Beach. We had 2 restaurants close who were near the beach. The economy is not improving. And so, it's my understanding that we won't see any relief from this project in Imperial Beach until this project is finished. We hear from the chambers and some of the local regions, and they're talking about this project will improve the quality of life. And I have such a hard time buying into that because we have different purviews on it. As we sit here now, I have 2 members of the Imperial Beach community on this board with me. The impacts will continue on because the sewage issue is a Mexico problem. We know that. It's not the U.S. to continue to build bigger and bigger infrastructure to handle this. We know that when this project opens, that we're going to see increased commerce, because everybody loves to talk about commerce and dollars. Talk about the quality of life for those in the Otay area, Otay area workers. What about those who live there? I don't know. Again, I'm not going to continue to go through everything that I always talk about, but I'm grateful this is moving forward because we need some relief, and I want to make sure that there's some new members of this board as of this year. As a reminder that last year, this board unanimously approved and supported action to be taken by SANDAG to look into some opportunities that we have in negotiating with Mexico. Obviously, the biggest opportunity we would have had would have been back in 2022 when the tolling, the tolling agreements were approved, and nobody really thought much about the continuing impacts and how they last. So I just want to make sure that those who are new to this board know that this board has committed to having staff take action. We haven't gone too far. Obviously, there's no money to be had until this project opens. There's only more money to be spent. So I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to approve the action that's been taken, and to Maria and to all the SANDAG staff, because I know there's been some huge hurdles, especially with CBP and GSA to get going. And so I will continue to approve whatever actions need to be taken to get this project done. And at that same time, I'm hoping that the conversations continue with staff and with Mexico and with all players who want to be interested in helping to solve the economic crisis that is fueled by probably the worst environmental crisis in the United States at this point. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lyons, representing the Water Authority.
Thank you, Chair Huebner. My question is more kind of administrative in nature. If you could help me understand the background for this action. I've not been associated with an agency that's put forward an ordinance to become the building authority for a project. So we are taking on the authority and the responsibility that all of the work designed and constructed on this one project will conform with the state Uniform Building Code 2022. Why? So that's what I understand. If that's not correct, okay, you're not. So why do we need to establish this in an ordinance? Why is this action needed in order for this project to conform with the state building code?
It's part of Title 24 of the California Code to adopt it, to adopt the standards through ordinance.
I think I can expand a little bit more on that.
Thank you.
We're building a facility that will be gifted to several entities. We will be gifting a facility to the federal government. We will be passing on also a facility to the state government when the team talks about CBF as a commercial vehicle enforcement facility where the highway patrol is housed and Caltrans owns it. So that's per state standards. But then also the team has to follow federal standards, the G100 or a new standard for GSA, and work within that standard, but also work within the local standards too. Both of them fit in there. So we're maneuvering multiple bars, and we're trying to put it within one single bubble of supervision.
Great, I understand that. So there's lots of different codes we do need to comply with, and this aggregates all that within one action.
Pretty much, and that's how the team can assure that things are being done. One for ANS standards, the states for her facility, another one for CVB standards and GSA standards, and on and on.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay, Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you so much, Chair. And first off, I want to thank staff and I want to thank our CEO for putting this forward. I am one of the lucky ones that I got to see this from the get-go when it was barely starting in 2006. And then I remembering that SB 1486 with Denise Moreno, then Senator DeChaney, passed in 2008. So this is a well thought of project. And I know it's many facets of it. Working with the Mexican government, working with GSA, working with CBP mostly. It's, for me, I want to thank our chambers that are here today. Alejandra Mieriteran and Smart Border Coalition, Joaquin Luquen, and the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, because we need to understand that we need to think holistically as a region, right? When we talk about the border, we talk about pollution. We talk about wait times. We talk about tourism. We talk about our students, our workforce. We have a lot of people that unfortunately can't afford to live in our region. And although they are US citizens, they have to look elsewhere for housing. And that creates 3-hour, 4-hour wait times. And it shouldn't be that way, right? I just want to mention that it has been mentioned right now that we are responsible for over 80 billion in international trade, and we're the most transited border in the world. And any progress is good progress for border crossings. I am going to be moving to support this motion. And I just want to thank everyone that has been involved. It's over 19 years we've been working on this. And I especially want to thank Mario, because I know he has been the pillar and the champion of this project. And it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy negotiations, but I know that people respect them. And a lot of us admire that this is going to change. This project is going to change the life of millions moving forward well after us. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And I'll move on to Mayor Gasterland. Is there a second from you on this?
I will second. Thank you.
Very good.
This has long been one of my favorite projects, for so many reasons. With my technology background, the technology of this with the dynamic tolling is just a fascinating thing. And it's a first in many ways. It's going to be a new standard for getting freight across our border in so many ways. And so my question focuses on the amount of freight and the impact to our region. So we've talked a lot about the total economic impact, and I'd like to understand a little bit better our regional economic impact. So the proportion of freight that enters San Diego County by truck versus by train is enormous. If we look at our prior RTP in the appendices, it's about 98% that enters by truck. So one question I have, and I'll ask all the questions and then you can answer, is what proportion of what comes in across our land borders are going to go through the county northward and keep going versus come to the county? So basically, this is going to be a conduit for the most part, is my understanding. The economic benefit to the region will be in the form of some amount of funds that will come from tolls, new jobs, and hopefully funds to mitigate the sewage. And I'd like to make sure that we understand the degree to which we're on track to use some of the tolling funds to mitigate the sewage problems in Imperial Beach and South County. We need to put that on the table so that we know what it is. And it's also going to alleviate economic impacts of delays, and that includes air pollution due to idling trucks. So if you can just confirm, and are there any further economic benefits to the region that I've left out? And then my last question on these lines is, in the table or graph that is in memo 1 in our attachments, we see manufacturing GDP as 27.6 billion on the US side, 12.3 on the Mexico side, for a total of 40 billion. So that's one graph. And so the Mexico side would be the 12.3 billion. And the words underneath that in a bullet point say that Otay Mesa East will facilitate 60 billion in cross-border trade. And our member from Chula Vista just mentioned 80 billion. So I'd like to understand the 12.3, the 40 total, the 60 billion, and the 80 billion figures. And that's the freight value.
Can I mention that this number recently was mentioned by the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce? So I was always mentioning 60 billion, but now it's 80 billion. So I'm guessing they have the correct studies.
Yeah, I totally trust it, but I want to make sure we're all clear on the value total and the value to the region. And the reason, why am I asking this? Because $77 million, just under 77 million of local regional funds are going into this. 57 million has already been spent and 15 million remains to be spent of the remaining $699 million.
Thank you for your excellent questions. I'll start from those that were asked later. Our board member was correct that the amount of cross-border trade changes with the different statistics that come out. And 60 billion is a safe conservative estimate. I have seen up to 80 billion. I think we could update that number, but sometimes it fluctuates between the two. With regard to economic benefits for our region, and environmental benefits, which you mentioned, our analysis shows a reduction in approximately 30% of carbon emissions as a result of the project by 2035. There's a few technical assumptions that go into that number, which I would be happy to provide the background information to. I don't have them at my fingertips. Another statistic that I can share is the value of freight that remains in the state versus the value that is seen outside of our state. So not necessarily within the region, and so not exactly the answer that you were looking for, but something close. And we see it's about 50%. It's increasing the amount of impact that we see in other states. The proportion has increased over time. So the freight that crosses our border is increasingly impactful for the nation.
And I want to add to one of your questions, and to be total transparent, the Senate Bill 1486, the enabling legislation that rules this project, currently it allows that the revenues be used, or mandates that the revenues be used in the corridor. The definition of the corridor is State Route 11, the port of entry, and ancillary facilities. The ancillary facilities are like a transit station or any support stations. There was a bill that was promoting setting aside something for the Tijuana River that didn't go through, that you mandate us to work on this effort on trying to figure out how we support the Tijuana River issue. We have begun discussions, and we have put on the table with the Mexican government and proposed to them that some of their revenues be set aside for an environmental impact set aside on their side. And we also have been working on our resilience study that would also look into not just this project or many other avenues of how can we deal with environmental issues along the border corridor, meaning a 10-mile swap within the border, the border north and south. So I just want to be very transparent in all those matters.
Okay, all right. Before we go any further, I just want clarification. Do we need to vote, Alfred, on 4.1? We voted to waive the reading of the full ordinance, but do we need to vote now, or is it at the October 31st meeting for the GSA and the first work package?
Yes.
Okay, we don't. Okay, all right. That's why that's up there. That's what the clarify. Okay, first Vice Chair LaCava.
All right, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the clarification. So thank you for the presentation on both of the items. I certainly am supportive. I know sometimes it's easy to forget in these public hearings about how much time is spent to get to these pivotal points and these decision points going forward. And I appreciate the conversations that have been happening long before I became on the board, and all the decisions that went in to actually get to this point that we're actually ready to issue construction contracts and get on in delivery of this new port of entry. I wanted to circle back just kind of quickly on some of the questions and answers that my colleagues raised when we first talked about 4.1. And I appreciate the board previously decided on the construction manager, general contractor form of government, or excuse me, form of contracting, which I totally support. City of San Diego is finally going to catch up in a slightly different version of that. I think there's so much value in that. But this question about the risk to SANDAG taking the lead on this, I would, my assumption in the answers that I heard from our CEO and others, that our tolerance for change orders would be much, much smaller because the contractor has been involved since day one. And undergrounding is typically the area of the most risk, uncertainty, but having them involved that there may be uncertainty, that's just always a possibility, but our tolerance for change orders from the contractor would be much, much tighter than we traditionally do on a construction contract. Am I, that assumption correct?
Yes, and I think we have a very
This
tough
process is
team.
to avoid as much as we can the CCOs, because now they have seen the plans, they have had time to give us input, and they are giving us input, and we are making changes with their suggestions. So it's to deal with unknowns. As another board member pointed out before, there are unknowns that we have to deal with CCOs, but this is to minimize the number of CCOs. And they're proposing innovations that we didn't even think of. So it's a great process to go through.
I think it absolutely is. I just didn't hear that directly about the tolerance being much, much tighter than we normally would be. So I just wanted to assure that. And then I guess to the other question real quickly, and I apologize if this has been discussed and debated. We have two other agencies that ultimately are going to take ownership of this. What if they decide as they see construction proceed, oh, now that we see this, we want to make some changes that make incur additional cost? How does that get funded? Is it we have a reserve? And I appreciate that, but how does that work in terms of protecting SANDAG?
We have guardrails for that as well. The changes that they've been giving us input, so we've been designing, and they've been in meetings every week with us. So everything is evaluated together, and we're making changes to their needs on a daily basis. We have put it sub guardrails. Major changes would only be considered for national security. So if it comes from very high above, we have to implement it, but we had to put some restrictions on what we're willing to change during construction.
Okay,
I can give you an example. The Border Patrol came with a request for a national security feature, but they also came with a funding source. They recognized that, we call them, hey, don't give us any late hits here. So they came in and said, if this is needed and if needs to be implemented, we'll pay for this one. So it's an ongoing effort that the team is going back and forth. It's very active and dynamic.
All right, great. Thank you very much for answering those last few questions. And again, thank you to everybody that has worked so hard and how many public hearings there's been on this particular project to get us to this point. And I will be supportive.
Very good. Mayor Jones.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just had one comment, and that is if we do decide that we should support or that we can support some action of using some of the funds from the toll road to work on the Tijuana sewage crisis, I would definitely be supportive of that. So if we think that it would be helpful to get some legislation at the state level, I would definitely like to have that back here at the board.
Good. And Supervisor Aguirre.
Thank you. It's great to hear that there's support for that concept, because the only reason I'm supporting this is with the caveat that that ship has not sailed. Because I think this board has an ethical and moral responsibility to address the environmental impacts and now public health impacts from all of this commercial freight. And I know some might say, well, why does the business sector have to pay for those costs? And to that, I would say, why do the people of District 1 have to pay with their health and quality of life? We now have 3 different studies, 2 from the Centers for Disease Control that surveyed over 2,100 respondents, not just in Imperial Beach, but in Nestor and San Isidro and Coronado in areas of South Chula Vista, that found that 70% of families in those regions have fallen ill or have a family member that has fallen ill. This is a public health emergency. We can no longer afford to separate the two in this cognitive dissonance, thinking that one won't impact the other. My community cannot even breathe at this point. We're working to expand the air filter program from 1 air filter per household to 4, just so that kids and elderly and seniors and immunocompromised can breathe overnight. We have to explore that option. And I am not supportive of looking to Mexico and seeing if Mexico sets aside funding to address it on their side. If they want to do that, that's great. But we have a responsibility here that if we're going to increase all of this commercial trade, we need to allocate some of those funds to wastewater infrastructure mitigation on our side. This is this month's San Diego Physician Magazine. Kids there's increases in irritable bowel syndrome, asthma, sinusitis in children. 77% of people surveyed in the Centers for Disease Control have been hospitalized because of this crisis. We can no longer ignore it. So with that caveat, I will be supporting this item. Thank you.
Very good. With no one else on the board, let's vote. Okay, that passes with 1 dissent from Escondido. We'll now move on to the regional plan update. Pardon me? Who is that? Antoinette, please go ahead.
Okay, good morning. We are nearing the finish line for the 2025 regional plan. In December, we'll be bringing you the final regional plan and the EIR, asking you to approve it so that we can submit it to the state and federal governments for approval. So I wanted to give you an update in advance of that on the comments that we received when the draft plan was out for public review from May to the end of July, and proposed changes that we are making between draft and final. So when December comes around, there's no surprises. You know exactly what to expect when we bring you the plan. So we've been working very closely with the board and the policy advisory committees over the last several years to get to this point. I know not all of you have been a part of that process. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just recapping how we got to this point today with the regional plan. But before, I'm going to start with the rules of the game. What are the laws and the requirements that we have to follow in order to get the plan approved by the federal and state government? And I think, as you all know, it's really important to have an approved plan, because without it, we're not eligible for federal and state funding for transportation. And that's not just SANDAG, but that's all agencies in the region. So the requirements for the plan are numerous, but they generally fall into the categories here on this slide. So starting in the top left-hand corner with our federal requirements, we have to comply with Title VI. We have to do a special analysis to demonstrate that the plan won't cause negative impacts to the vulnerable communities as defined in Title VI. And there's a special analysis that's included as an appendix of the plan that demonstrates this. Air quality is another federal requirement. San Diego region does not meet federal air quality standards, so we have to go through a special formal technical process to demonstrate that the projects in the plan won't worsen air quality or create any new air quality violations. And there is a federally approved model that we have to use to do this analysis. Mario mentioned in his update that there's been some changes at the federal level, and those changes invalidated the approved model for the state of California. So it's creating a little bit of a complication for us here at the end of the planning period because we don't have an approved model to use to do our air quality conformity. We believe we've identified a solution. It's not 100% solidified yet, so we'll keep you updated. But we're hopeful that we have a solution that will allow us to demonstrate conformity and submit the plan to the feds before the current plan expires. In terms of housing and land use, we have state requirements that we have to show how we will accommodate the regional housing allocation and how future job and housing growth will be located near existing or planned transportation infrastructure and services. And then the law that we talk a lot about related to climate and vehicle miles traveled is Senate Bill 375. And that's a state law that requires us to demonstrate how the plan will measurably reduce greenhouse gas emissions based on reducing vehicle miles traveled by 2035. And the state sets that target. The target for this plan is a 19% per capita reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And again, that's based on reducing vehicle miles traveled. So in other words, we don't get to take credit for cleaner cars and zero emission vehicles. This is a very, very difficult law to comply with. We spent a lot of time on our technical methodology and working with the state to get approval. As Mario mentioned, we're working hard to reform and improve SB 375. We'll be in Sacramento on Monday, in fact, having meetings on that. But in the meantime, this is the law that we have to comply with. I'm happy to say that we've been running the model with the changes between draft and final that we'll be sharing with you today. And we're at about 19.3%. So we're meeting that target, and that's very good news. So we have to update the plan every 4 years, and it honestly takes us almost 4 years to do it. For this plan, we started back in 2022, and that's when we update all of the data that we use and the modeling tools that we use to evaluate the plan. So we did a household travel survey, commercial vehicle survey, cross-border survey, and we shared all of that with you back in 2022 and 2023. In 2023, we started working with you to set the goals for the plan, to understand your priorities, and we did some initial outreach to understand what the community wanted to see in the regional plan. In 2024, we developed what we called an initial concept. So that was a transportation network that we brought to you. We tested with the public and got some feedback on it before we developed a draft this year in 2024 and released that draft for public comment and review. We've also developed a draft EIR. That's actually still out for public review. It'll be out until October 13th. But the ultimate goal is to bring you a plan in December for approval. Our current plan will expire in January, so December is when we need to adopt a new regional plan. So the board asked to be very involved in the development of this plan, and we took that very seriously. Starting back in 2023, we had a series of workshops, discussions, presentations with you, and you'll see all of those different touch points here on this slide. The goal was really to understand early what your priorities were. It was to be very transparent and open and to try to build some consensus around the key elements of the plan so that when we get to this point in December, there are no real surprises. We also go through a formal tribal consultation process for the plan. So we do that through our Tribal Transportation Working Group, through our Tribal Task Force, and one-on-one meetings with the tribal leadership to make sure that the tribe's priorities are captured in the plan. And the tribe actually has their own version of a regional transportation plan. It's called the Interregional Tribal Transportation Strategy, or ITTS. And we worked with them to make sure that their priority projects that were in that plan that were regional in nature were also captured in the 2025 regional plan. We've done a lot of outreach for this plan. This slide captures the outreach that we did after we released the draft. It does not capture the outreach that we did before we developed before and after we developed the initial concept for the transportation network. But we did both in-person learning sessions and virtual learning sessions to make sure folks who couldn't come to the in-person had the opportunity to learn and weigh in. We presented to a number of different stakeholder groups, community groups. We did community events, and then we held a public hearing at the Transportation Committee. And we received over 1,300 comments during the public comment period. Most of those came in on our online form. Some came in via the learning sessions, email, and then the remainder came either through the public hearing at the Transportation Committee or letters or phone calls. And after the public comment period closed, the team spent a lot of time, as you can imagine, going through all of those comments and categorizing those comments. And now we're in the process of responding to all of those comments. But this slide really captures kind of the themes that we heard through the public comment period. So we got the most comments on transit. 47% of the comments that came in were related to transit and a desire for faster, frequent, more reliable and convenient transit, more transit amenities, things like shelters, extending transit into rural communities that are underserved today. And I think the good news is that the plan really accomplishes that. There's major transit investments proposed in the plan, both improvements to the transit that's out there today and new transit. The second most common comment that we got was related to active transportation, people wanting safe, active transportation infrastructure in their communities. Next was highways and roadways. About 19% of the comments were related to that. People wanting to see the roadways improved, and also people having concerns about roadway expansions due to environmental impacts. The next was housing and land use. About 12% of the comments were related to that. Climate and GHG, 9%. So people wanting us to continue to invest in programs and projects that improve air quality, improve the environment. And then last, 6% of the comments were related to Title VI and folks encouraging us to continue to invest in projects that help disadvantaged communities. We also got comments from some of your agencies and our partners, the operators, and this led to a few changes in the plan. None of the changes are major, significant. If you look at the map that you saw back when we released the draft and the map today, you're probably not going to notice much in terms of changes, but I did want to highlight a few of them for you, and you have the detailed list as an attachment to your staff report. So in terms of highway changes, the Navy and Coronado asked that the managed lane that was proposed on the Coronado Bridge be removed due to concerns about Navy access and operational issues. So we were able to do that, and we've run the model and determined that we can still meet our requirements without that project. The removal of the toll on SR 125 was moved past 2035, and this is because Caltrans has recently completed their analysis of what it would cost to improve the roadways, to bring it to a state of good repair, so we can return the facility over to them to operate and maintain. And the cost is substantial. We'll be coming back to the board with Caltrans to present that in the coming months after they have it finalized. But at this point, we don't have enough funding to be able to both pay off the toll and make those improvements prior to 2035. Now, I should say this doesn't mean we couldn't if a funding source became available or if the cost came down to do that. But in the plan, we have to use current data, current planning assumptions, and we don't have an identified funding source for that now. And then the rest of the changes were pretty minor changes, corrections to the network or things that Caltrans asked us to adjust. So for example, the HOV lane on I-5 didn't go quite far enough north, so we fixed that. In terms of transit, the airport transit connection, we've done a lot of planning over the last year on that project. We've learned a lot. The TC got an update at their meeting last month, and we've moved the rail connection to after 2035. And this is because, again, it wouldn't be possible for us to construct and fund that project prior to 2035. However, in the near term, we have improvements to the bus and shuttle service that access the airport today. We also moved what was called in the draft plan, the U.S.-Mexico border transit connection to what we call the unconstrained network. What is the unconstrained network? Well, we have to have a fiscally constrained plan. That means we have to show how we could pay for everything in the plan, and then we can only include projects that can be built within the plan's timeframe. So this project, which was also called Cross-Border Charlie, we have no identified funding source for. It's certainly not something that could be constructed by 2050. And Tijuana is working on plans to improve access in San Ysidro. So there's just not enough information for this project to be in the constrained project list. So that was moved to unconstrained. And there were some other minor updates to transit routes based on feedback that we got from NCTD and MTS. And then last but not least, we were able to update the project costs, and the project costs came down. We're at 125 billion. This is the lowest cost plan we've had in over a decade, which is great news. And then that allowed us to reduce from 2 half-cent regional sales tax to a single 3/4 cent sales tax in, I think, 2032 in the plan. And that's something that we were asked to do at a joint policy advisory committee meeting last year. And we said we would certainly try to do that between draft and final. So I'm happy to say that we did. Like I said, the map isn't going to look much different. Most of the projects still remain in the plan. We have a lot of new transit and upgrades to existing transit. We have 36 neighborhood shuttle service areas or flexible fleet areas, as we've called them. We have a complete network of managed lanes, safety and operational improvements to our rural corridors, and a complete active transportation network that really includes all of your active transportation plans as well as some of the SANDAG projects. And then I mentioned we do the tribal consultation and we capture their projects in the regional plan, and we have more of the tribal projects in this regional plan than we have in past. That includes safety and operational improvements to the rural state routes. Some of those projects are actually underway. The curve realignment on 76, Willows Road are 2 of the projects that we're advancing right now. And of course, you've heard about the 67 improvements project. The environmental analysis is underway for that as well. Just wanted to reiterate that the land use pattern in the plan is consistent with all of your general plans, and that has not changed between draft and final. And then one of the early workshops we did with the board was to identify goals for the plan. And the goals are under these categories. It was related to having a convenient, equitable, healthy, safe transportation network and communities. And we've been running the model, and we're trending in the right direction for all of these goals. Travel times go down for all modes, including commercial vehicles and the major corridors. Access is improved to basic needs, so medical, education, jobs. Air quality, our greenhouse gas emissions go down. I mentioned that we were able to meet our 19.3%, and then transportation-related physical activity increases, and that is probably because more of the population has access to safe, active transportation infrastructure. I mentioned the cost of the plan is 125 billion, and I want to remind everyone that that does not just include the new projects in the plan. That's operating and maintaining what we have today and what we'll be building in the future. It's also paying off debt. It's the grant programs that we administer. It's the funds that pass through us to you and to transit operators. So it's the cost of everything. In terms of next steps, I mentioned the environmental impact report is out for public review. The public comment period closes on the 13th of October. Also in October, we'll be having a joint working group to make sure that all of your staff are aware of the changes that are being proposed in the plan. We've been having one-on-one conversations with them, but we just want to get everyone together one last time. And then in December, we'll be bringing the final regional plan and EIR to the board for adoption. So I want to thank you all for being great partners in the development of this plan. I've worked on a lot of regional plans at SANDAG, and we've never had this level of engagement and involvement from the board. Appreciate your active participation. And I want to say thank you to the team. There's been a lot of people involved in getting the plan developed. Some of them are here today, the technical experts, but I am certainly not alone in developing the regional plan. And I'm thankful for the staff's hard work to get us here. I'll hand it back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Antoinette and team. Yes, this has been a very different effort than the previous RTP, which was pretty much kind of presented to the board. This particular RTP, those of you who were here prior to 2024 know that we had many breakout sessions in our old headquarters in the other conference room, where we had big wide pads of paper with maps on them, and we chose what we wanted to add onto these maps in our cities. We learned that if you add certain highways, you have to then add onto programs. We understood the give and take that staff has to go through to make this all work and meet the standards that the state has provided to us. So I think we all had a better understanding of what it took to make this. you listened to us. There's a lot of things in here that I think that we had asked for and weren't in previous plans, and we're pleased about that. At this time, we're going to go to the public comments, and then we'll go to member comments. Michael, I hear we have quite a few comments.
Yes, we have 5 in person and we have 9 online. We'll go with Truth, followed by allegedly Audra.
I think Paloma's friends Mexico should pay for this plan since they don't have to pay for anything else. 1,332 comments of a 3.3 million population equates to 0.0004% input for this unrepresentative plan. Those artificial comments came from the climate cults and the political unions who've admitted to allying as well as trying to control this board. To counter those paid comments and speak for the millions, no to expensive political project labor agreements, no to anyone riding public transit for free because it leads to entitlement, disrespect, and crime. No to expensive and dangerous bike lanes, roundabouts, and traffic circles. No to GHG or VMT track and control of an individual's right to travel. No to paying for new transit to the airport when they should pay for it. No to all HOV and managed toll lanes anywhere. No to more bus routes when MTS and NCTD can't afford what they have now. No to any projects for polluting Mexico. No to all SANDAG, MTS, and NCTD taxes. No to wasting over $125 billion on a plan nobody knows about. Yes to evacuation routes, highway straightening, dividers, and road expansions for dangerous, neglected highways like the 67. Yes to downsizing buses with low ridership. Yes to one security officer on every trolley and coach to car and at every station. Yes to converting unused bike lanes into motorcycle lanes for those who actually pay for the roads. Yes to fixing broken streets and sidewalks and lighted crosswalks. Yes to reconfiguring highway design to reduce congestion choke points. Why did Coronado get the highway toll removal while everyone else gets to keep the tolls? Antoinette said at the joint meeting, the trader trolley from Mexico, it's still of interest and we don't want to lose sight of it. Who on this board made that call? Carolina, same old lying about people. She said about the people living in Mexico. But you know what? They are not American if they don't live here and pay property taxes. Because if we use that logic, then SANDAG needs to build projects for Arizona, Temecula, and the backcountry who are American and need fast transit to work. But nobody's going to support that, right? Each foreign head is a number to make it look like the trolley's well used and in need of more union contracts. But you know what, Kevin? I feel like SB 375 isn't legitimate law. Maybe we should just buck it.
Next is allegedly Audra, followed by Kareli Serrano.
You guys are funny, $125 billion to enslave the people and put them in a 15-minute city. And I guess, you know, as SANDAG was saying at one of the other meetings, lack of political resistance leads to implementation of things. So here we are, because people don't know about it, because if you told people what was really going on, they would want their money back. But it's interesting that we don't want to hold Mexico to the same standards. We're like, we need to hold San Diego to, you know, make sure that we're reducing our greenhouse gases, getting people out of their cars and stuff. But, you know, we're making transit for people that don't even live here and take money out of San Diego. And then all of the people that actually live here, you can't get in around San Diego using public transit. You can't. And you guys don't care, but you care about putting all this stuff near Mexico, not making sure. I mean, you should be having an environmental impact fee that goes to people coming from Mexico. And from Mexico, not only for their sewage that they continue to dump because they don't want it going on their streets. So let's put it in ours and let's just, you know, worry about commerce and all of that and your relationship with them, as opposed to saying, well, let's make it equal playing ground, right? If you guys want to come here and pollute our air and all of this stuff, I mean, how are you ever going to be able to meet a standard for the state if the next door neighbor doesn't have a standard that they're trying to meet and they're just adding to the stuff that we're trying to combat? It's never going to, it's like, if you try and take poop out of water and then you keep pooping in the water, you think it's going to make a difference? No. But it's like, you guys do all this stuff. You're talking about $125 billion of the people, and everything that you're doing for housing, you actually increase the cost of living, making it impossible to build because you're so worried about the planet that people suffer the consequences of your guys' pretend nature, your doublespeak, all of your virtue signaling like we're going to save the planet while people are dying on the streets because you can't build anything or provide anything.
Next is Kareli Serrano, followed by Ian Hembry.
Good morning, board members. My name is Carly Serrano. I'm the transportation organizer at Mid-City Can. I want to start off by acknowledging your commitment to transit priorities, especially the Youth Opportunity Pass in the regional plan for 2025. During my time collecting input for the regional plan and hearing the stories of our community members, there was a heavy emphasis on the need to invest in more reliable transportation system by prioritizing programs like the Youth Opportunity Pass, but also investing in more bus routes, as the presentation showed us. Our current system is extremely time-consuming and inconvenient in many cases. We also heard about the benefits of the microtransit program, such as Via in City Heights, that has helped people in City Heights get around safely and more efficiently. That's why we are so happy to see that microtransit is in the draft regional plan. On the topic of safety, I do ask the board to reconsider implementing bike safety regulations on the regional plan, as this form of mobility is a growing community issue. This weekend, we held an event where our youth received donated bikes from SD Bike Collective, and we're giving a workshop on bike and road safety. The education on safety is important, but the priority is creating safe streets for our bike riders to feel safe to navigate the streets. Thank you.
Next is Ian Hembry, followed by Stefan Vance.
Good morning, SANDAG board. My name is Ian Hembry, and I am the advocacy manager for the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. I'm here to request that this board reincorporate the National Association of City Transportation Officials, or NACTO, contextual guidance to the regional plan. In the 2021 regional plan, NACTO guidance is heavily featured and relied upon as a gold standard for contextual guidance for building bikeways. The NACTO guide is not a design guide. It doesn't stipulate widths or prescribe bikeway features. Instead, it provides a starting point and an overview to decide what kind of bikeway is appropriate for riders of all ages and abilities, depending on the speed and volume of the roadway. Including references to NACTO guidance as the 2021 plan does is helpful for demonstrating to the public and other agencies what kind of bike network we can expect by 2050. Going forward, SANDAG can formalize its commitment to an all ages and abilities bike network by adopting a complete streets policy, which would stipulate that any funds SANDAG disperses must help build safe networks for all modes of transportation for all ages and abilities. This is what MTC in the Bay Area does, and would be in line with the mandate in the 2004 Transnet extension that requires Transnet funds be used to build bike and pedestrian projects that are designed to the best currently available standards and guidelines. So with that being said, please consider reintroducing the NACTO guide today and consider a complete streets policy in the future. Thank you for your time.
Next is Stefan Vance, followed by Doreen Diaz online.
Thank you and good morning, members of the board. I'm speaking to you today as a person who had a 36-year career doing regional transportation planning. So I have some idea of how difficult it is to get to this point in the regional transportation planning process. So I want to begin by congratulating you all and the staff for the work that you've done to get to this point. I know that in a region that's as large and diverse as San Diego is, that this is not an easy task. I'm also here today, though, to support Ian's comment regarding the bikeway design guidance from NACTO. I understand that the NACTO guides are something that's relatively new in the transportation world, but it is not by any means new and untested. It's been around long enough now that we do know that these are good guidelines. There's over 100 cities around the country that are members of NACTO. And so these are very useful tools for guiding how we select bikeway projects. Like the region itself, the population of people who ride bikes in this region is diverse. And yes, there are voices who don't find some of these facilities useful to them, but I can tell you from my experience that this is a minority of the population of people who ride bikes, especially when you consider all those people who would like to ride bikes more, but don't feel comfortable doing so because the streets are just hostile to them. And so SANDAG should be a leader in creating that kind of complete network of safe and comfortable bikeways around the region. Your leadership as the regional agency will help local agencies also adopt the same design standards, and so we can get to the goals we have for reducing traffic deaths and improving our air quality and reducing climate impacts. Thank you.
Next is Doreen Diaz online, followed by Steve Gelb.
Hello, Doreen Diaz, Hammershaw, City of San Diego. Wow, we are facing sad times when this presenter spoke about holding a lot of community meetings and getting input, and then said 6 in-person meetings when we have 18 plus cities. We have dozens of unincorporated communities. The city of San Diego itself has 9 council districts, and you had 6 in-person meetings. That's why you did not get input. I could tell for my community, which did fill things online, nothing was mentioned in anything that was said. I mean, this is really bad. At a minimum, you should have had at least 75 in-person meetings, minimum of 75, just to provide equity in at least 3 meetings in each city, and to go to a few of the unincorporated. We need true community input, which means you need to have a weekday morning for senior citizens that don't drive. You need to have an evening meeting for people that are working and can't come till night. And you need a Saturday meeting for people with little kids that maybe have to do dinner after work and can't come during weekday nights. So really, this plan did not get input, and you're still using inaccurate maps that do not match community plans. Someone needs to do an ordinance that the city of San Diego actually use maps in their community plans. And if a community plan has 6 communities, then that section of that area should have 6 communities, not 4.
Next is Steve Gelb, followed by Ariane.
Good morning, board and San Diego staff. I'm really grateful for the hard work of both the board and the staff in putting together the regional plan. I'm a member of San Diego 350. I live in the Mission Valley area. I'm 77 years old, and I use a bicycle for most of my transportation needs, but I also drive. The biggest obstacle to getting more people on bicycles is their concern for safety. I have a friend who skydives, but is afraid to ride a bicycle in San Diego because he thinks that's too dangerous. And he has a point, because I need to ride at times on 6-lane roads with speeding cars separated from me by only a line of paint. The laws of physics are the same across the county, so the NACTO guidelines should apply everywhere. Following them would allow cyclists of all ages and abilities to use our roads, and they would help us meet our Vision Zero goals, our climate goals, air quality goals, and SB 375 reduction goals. So I agree with Ian and Stefan that it's very important that these NACTO guidelines be put back in the plan. Otherwise, I think it would be a serious step backwards. We have made a lot of progress on bike infrastructure, but we should be following best practices, and NACTO gives us the guidelines for best practices. Thank you very much.
Next is Adian, followed by Zach Sturgeon.
Good morning. It has been known for a long time that in order for San Diego to meet its climate goals, transit modal share has to increase to 10% by 2035. In other words, transit usage has to be tripled in that time. What has this plan been doing to work towards this goal? Spoiler alert, utterly terrible. Since the 2021 regional plan, this plan has cut more than 75% of all rail expansion. Meanwhile, there are more than 10 instances of freeway widenings and other and dozens more freeway improvements. These projects would only increase congestion, increase car usage, while increasing pollution and tire dust for the communities that live along the freeways. Additionally, back when the airport transit connection environmentals were decided to be delayed, it was promised that it wouldn't delay the overall timeline. Well, that was a lie. Now this critical and an important airport rail project is being delayed to after 2035. And meanwhile, so many other highway projects are being accelerated and being done quicker. Why isn't this board working to expand green transit projects faster before doing these polluting these climate damaging freeway projects that would only lock our region into gridlock? Thank you.
Next is Zach Sturgeon, followed by Jason.
Thank you. I am a bike commuter who also frequently uses public transit in San Diego County. I do not drive and have not in the time I've lived here because public transit here is better than anywhere else I've lived. It is still difficult to get to many places, but I just wanted to start by acknowledging that and expressing gratitude. And I am excited to see there are routes being added because there are places where it is challenging to get to by public transit despite the state of our system. As a bike commuter, I did want to express concern that NACTO guidelines are being removed because they do show a high standard for bike and active transportation facilities. I live in a region where cars are frequently traveling 40, 50 miles down the road, and you have, as another commenter mentioned, a line of paint separating you from them. Not a particularly thick line of paint. And frequently, because we don't have protected bike lanes, in many of these instances, there are cars parked in the bike lanes that you then have to go around and merge with 50-mile-per-hour traffic. So I do think the NACTO guidelines speak to that, as well as allowing for somewhat less labor-intensive, lower speed networks. So I just wanted to express support for retaining the NACTO guidelines that were present in the previous regional plan. Thank you.
Next is Jason, followed by phone number 8226.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm a resident of downtown San Diego. Please keep the NACTO guidelines in the 2025 regional plan, including the protected bike lanes. My family, we own a car, but we try to walk or bike everywhere we can because it's better for our health and for the climate. The only thing really that allows us to safely do that is protected bike lanes. Like other commenters mentioned, in San Diego, you really can't avoid getting on a 4-lane, 45-mile-an-hour road. And the only way you can safely bike on these roads is if there's a protected bike lane, which in the past, SANDAG has done a much better job of providing than the individual cities usually do. I know there's a handful of professional racing cyclists who are against protected bike lanes, but honestly, this infrastructure isn't for professional cyclists. It's for families to get around. It's for kids on e-bikes, and it's for beginner cyclists who are curious about getting out of their car and trying to bike. You mentioned the difficulty of meeting our climate laws and climate goals. Just painting a white line on a highway next to speeding cars won't get people out of their cars and onto bikes. You need to physically protect the bike lanes to do that. And the NACTO guidelines provide the best framework for that. So please leave them in the plan. Thank you.
Next is phone number 8226, followed by Rachel Graham.
Hi, my name is David Pierce. I live in Carlsbad. 2 weeks ago tomorrow, a bicyclist was killed by a drunk driver on Highway 101 on a section that was at best a buffered bike lane in a 35-mile-an-hour zone that no driver obeys. This happened at 4:30 in the morning, which shows that it was probably a bicyclist who had good vision, was fit, enough to bike when it's a bit cooler and was confident in his abilities, and he still got killed. He was not an example of an all ages or abilities bicyclist. At that part of the road, a NACTO compliant protected bike lane would have saved him, and instead only paint was there, which did nothing. Business as usual painted bike lanes do not attract all ages and abilities riders, and therefore do not replace vehicle trips or reduce vehicle miles traveled. They only work for confident, fit cyclists, the type I call the Lycra crowd. These bicyclists are only bicycling for exercise, not errands or to and from school or work or friends, and therefore their bike trips do not replace car trips or reduce vehicle miles traveled or greenhouse gas emissions. I do want you to keep most of the NACTO guidelines, but perhaps the seemingly problematic design that was added and removed in Oceanside recently, namely the separate curb stops and the bollards in between them that are kind of confusing. Maybe you could throw those out, but please keep the other NACTO designs, such as continuous curbs or 1.5 foot tall barriers. Do not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Business as usual painted bike lanes renders much of the safety-focused network meaningless because it does not attract less fit, less confident people who are the biggest group for potential mode shift. In other words, all ages and abilities. Thank you.
Next is Rachel Graham, followed by Blair Beekman.
Hello, my name is Rachel Graham, and I am a resident of San Diego. I am urging you to include the NACTO Bikeway contextual guidance in the regional plan update to help ensure that people of all ages and abilities are able to bike in our county. I understand that not every cyclist wants or needs protected bike lanes. However, I am a very inexperienced cyclist, and I wouldn't even consider commuting to my office by bike due to the 50-mile-per-hour road and thin stripe of paint separating me from these cars, even though I only live a few miles away from work. I see cars and landscaping trucks parked in these bike lanes nearly every day, which would mean I need to merge into traffic going nearly freeway speeds. My mother hasn't been on her bike in decades and desperately wants to ride again, but is rightfully afraid of distracted drivers. Protected bike lanes would be game changers for us. Please include the NACTO guidance in the regional plan update so that biking can be accessible for all. Thank you very much.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item. Thanks a lot. Really good public comment today. A lot of people here for it. Thank you. I thank you that it sounds like you guys are really, I mean, there was a lot of input from board persons for this sort of item, and that you are having a degree of more public review time. Thank you. Your consent calendar had items of working towards auditing and better accountability for yourselves, and you guys are taking the steps. It's really nice to hear. Good luck in how we can continue to better and better work on those accountability steps. Good luck that you're working on, I heard, micro mobility and city heights issues. Man, you guys are really working on this stuff. It's nice to hear. Keep up this good efforts, and I hope it is a program that everyone can look at and see how it can be successful, what it can be doing well, and that we don't snipe at each other about it as in the past, and we can just study what it's doing well and grow from there. So good luck how those sort of projects can continue to work. And I guess to mention, you know, from the previous item, the work that we do with tech and open public policies and best practices at the border, I mean, that is a shared process. Not only we can do as community persons ourselves to be a part of that process, but how we work with Mexico. And it's those relationships that builds better dialogue for all the pollution issues and the air pollution issues that were talked about here today for this item. The Tijuana River has serious air pollution issues too, that creating an overall better dialogue with tech, with Mexico and the border issues can bring a better discussion for all the items we have to deal with Mexico at this time. Good luck in that open dialogue. Thank you.
Next is Paul the Bold, followed by Nicole Burgess.
Looks like SANDAG is way delaying another critical project, the airport connection. It is needed, though not right past the downtown bedroom windows. But when I say the 2036 to 2050 time frame, you must not be expecting many tourists. Of course, Lindbergh is so small, maybe you're getting a new airport. I'm glad you want to improve the shoddy and dangerous buses, but is this like welcome passengers? Your clean and safe Uber from the airport will cost about 5 times as much? I mean, you need to find a middle ground and do it quicker. The intro says you want to remove the SR 125 toll in 5 years, but then slide 9 says by 2035, that's 10 years. What the heck? Too long. I can see board member Chavez glaring at you. You want to replace 2 regional sales taxes for a half cent with one for 3/4 cent? Looks like a bargain until one realizes that the regions are undefined, so people might actually end up being soaked for more money. Slide 7. Public involvement in East County seems to have been limited to 3 in-person events, basically leaving them out compared to West County. Again, only 4,000 of the county submitted comments, so one wonders who's dictating these changes. Slide 13. Looks like you're abandoning East County with plans based on where the people live now, and I don't know why the map, once again, is cut off like halfway. You know, it doesn't show East County. Slide 15.
Thank you, Paul. Your time has expired. Next is Nicole Burgess, and we'll try Cesar Javier one more time. Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, SANDAG board members, and happy Friday to you. My name is Nicole Burgess, and I am enjoy riding my bike for transportation in San Diego and have become car-free resident. I thank all of you for your time with the new plan, but I want to echo the previous speakers as I am very disappointed to hear the NACTO guidelines are being taken out of the plan. It is extremely important for me for our region to have the top priority to continue to be safe streets for everyone, for all ages and ability. Not only will this help reduce the number of loved ones lost to traffic violence, but it also provides all residents the opportunity to embrace healthy lifestyles. I want to thank those of you that support our youth, our seniors, our disabled, and our unrepresented folks to provide safer, healthier, and more efficient mobility options for all ages and abilities. But I want to call on those that are listening to the small, selfish voices that do not believe these paths are safe and that they should be riding with traffic and taking over the road and calling on these 10 to 12-year-olds or our seniors to be taking the lane and moving through the traffic like we're a 4,000-ton car. It's really nonsense. In 2009 to 2015, I led a very wonderful group of 10 to 12-year-old students to school on a daily basis. I got involved here many years ago because it was terrifying to see these kids on Nimitz Boulevard with 50+ miles per hour traffic. I invested in a hard copy of the NACTA bicycle guidelines as it was the guideline to creating safer streets and continue to refer to it. I asked SANDAG to implement that plan, those guidelines back into this plan, as it is important for all ages and abilities to get out there and be able to ride safely on our streets. I thank you for your time, and I want to hear the voices from the kids and the adults and the ones that aren't able to be at the SANDAG meetings that are using our streets and want to
Thank you.
continue
Your time
them.
has expired.
Thank you.
And a last public comment, Cesar Javier. Go ahead.
This is Cesar Javier. I'm sorry, we are absent in person. We would just like to convey to you our congratulations because you are existing up to this moment. We depend on you. Your moral dimension Yes, sir, Mario. We had experienced divine intervention as we try to ask help from our elected officials, particularly our core city, on all aspects other than mobility and transportation, sir. Hear us, hear us. They are failing, and the direction would be impacting the decision-making of SANDAG, our only hope for the delivery of public good, whatever sphere of development. SANDAG appears to be taking over shell, man, shelter, society, and not only this great developmental project we call mobility, transportation, and even communication. Hail to SANDAG, and we will be watching you, sir, to grow healthy. And I hope Councilor Lacaba, Councilor Rivera, all of them, 11 queens and kings, we expect them to move forward for the right direction. We have suggested our humble solution for Tijuana River. Are they listening? Incremental solution, which are doable. And we are ready with our spade and sandbag and our SUVs.
Thank you, Caesar. Your time has expired. That concludes our public comment, Chair.
Very good. On to board members. First, Vice Chair LaCava.
All right, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation today, and thank you for all the work that led up to the presentation, where you really just only had to update us on some of the changes that have been made in the latest draft. And I appreciate all the public comment. I'm always reminded of the retreat that we did, where we really talked about the fact that the plan is really driven by the mandate to do greenhouse gas reductions. And some of the things that I know some of my colleagues would want to see in a plan just do not help us meet that goal. And we're just really on the very edge of achieving that. And I know there's just an extraordinary amount of work to do that. And now this new wrinkle with the air quality and how that works. Thank you for soldiering through that. One quick comment on the airport connection. I know some people are frustrated, and I want to make sure that I understand correctly that if there is a private initiative with private investment dollars that can figure out a way to connect our trolley stations with the airport, that SANDAG would remain open to that.
Yes, and the rail connection is still in the plan. It's just moved out past 2035 because it wouldn't be feasible to construct and pay for that prior to that.
Okay, I appreciate the reality check about the financial feasibility and saying we're not against it. We just don't know how to pay for it yet. So, so let me focus on where a lot of the public callers focus, which is on the NACTO guidelines, which puts me in an interesting, somewhat awkward position because I've been a big supporter of the good work to try to transition and make it safer and easier for folks to use biking as an option going forward. Even though I don't bike, I appreciate the value of people converting, and that's how we're going to meet a lot of our greenhouse gases. City of San Diego uses NACTO guidelines ourselves. On one hand, we're very grateful for the SANDAG projects, the 4th and 5th Avenue bike couplet there. The recently completed Pershing Drive work have been really great additions to our network. And yet we still use buckets of paint to define some of our bike lanes whenever we repave or slurry seal a street. That's all you get is just either one white line or a little bit of a buffer or the flexible bollards going forward. But help us better understand about, I have to admit, as an engineer, I was a little surprised that the NACTO guidelines would be in a 30,000 foot level as opposed to how SANDAG would evaluate new bike lane projects going forward in terms of implementation. Why take it out of the regional plan? And does that mean that you're taking it out of your evaluation of bike lane projects going forward?
No, it doesn't at all. There were comments submitted from member agencies expressing concern about specific design guidelines being referenced in the regional plan, when, like you said, the regional plan really is at 30,000 foot level. We get into project design when we start doing planning later on the project specifically. For other projects like transit, we don't have specific design guidelines. We work through those when we start planning those transit lines. So it was asked that we not reference specific design guidelines at the regional plan level, especially since many of the projects that are in the active transportation network aren't actually SANDAG projects. They're all of your projects.
Right. And that would affect how SANDAG would look at grant application. This is a little bit of a hypothetical, so I apologize for that. But would it affect how SANDAG evaluates grant applications that include bike lanes or complete streets?
The grant evaluation criteria is separate from the regional plan. So I'm not aware that we require NACTO guidelines in our grant evaluation criteria. I don't believe that is the case, but safety is certainly part of our criteria. So we do consider safety.
Okay, so it hasn't been part of the evaluation in the past, so.
I don't want to say 100% no, but I don't believe so. It's not my recollection.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I appreciate that. And I think this might be one of those cases where, while some people have advocated for a top-down kind of direction on that, this seems like a better category from the bottom up. And the advocacy should really go to the city by city to try to convince them. We've been convinced at the city of San Diego, even though we kind of do a hybrid model, for lack of a better term, and always struggle with, I think, the very difficult question of how you convert an existing street network into one with separated bike lanes in terms of financial feasibility, right-of-way acquisition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That makes it very difficult despite one's commitment to do that. So I hear what the voices are. I'm comfortable with it not being in the regional plan. I would certainly encourage my fellow board members to think about how that works best for their individual cities and what you're trying to do with your individual climate action plan. So with that, again, I'll close by thanking you very much for the good work in bringing this all forward. And I look forward to those final conversations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And on that point, I'd like to ask Mario a little bit about design guidelines for other forms of transportation that are in the regional transportation plan.
And we have guidelines for them? No. We don't tell Caltrans how to build their roads. We won't tell the county when they get money what standards they use, or MTS or North County Transit.
Thank you so much. All right, Deputy Mayor Molina.
Thank you. And it's council member.
I'm sorry.
But thank you.
I've got them mixed.
Thank you so much, Antoinette, and all of your team and all of the effort. It's helpful to have the summary like this, just as our chair reminded us, we went through so much in the actual planning, and to be reminded that all of those exercises culminated to this, it is very, it feels good. It feels good to know that all of that activity is not condensed, because this is huge. I mean, my one comment when I hit the 0 button on this thing was, wow. And I do want to thank you for coming out to National City. I know many other regions also received the impact from the efforts to reaching out to the community. My question, I heard you say that there was over 1,000 comments that were received throughout those community outreach events. I wanted to know, how does that compare to regional plans in the past? Was that a robust amount of participation from the public?
And I want to clarify that the 1,300 comments were just the comments received in the public comment period between draft and final. So we did other rounds of outreach, if you recall, and we received thousands of comments through that outreach as well. So the 1,300 is really specific to the 2-month public comment period. And I think it's pretty comparable to what we would normally get for regional plans. But again, if you look at all of the comments that were received over the life of the plan, it was many, many, many more than the 1,300. We had an online tool where people could go in and leave comments on maps about projects they'd like to see. We got a lot of comments that way early on. And we did a whole round of learning sessions and workshops early on and had a lot of people that came out and participated as well. So just wanted to clarify that.
Great, great, thank you. And I do also, I enjoyed the slide where you did summarize, you know, the sort of the highlights of those comments or the buckets that a lot of those comments fell into, because it does help to understand what the expectations are from the public and, you know, what they want to see in the regional plan. And I'm glad that there is a highlight for the bike infrastructure. You know, lately we hear a lot, or at least in this forum here, you know, why are we spending so much time with bicycle lanes? Nobody is riding them. Well, today we heard from quite a bit of the community that is riding them, right? So I really appreciate having that balance. So thank you to all of the commenters. My other question had to do with the cost. You did highlight that the overall cost of the plan is less perhaps than other plans. And I think it was Member LaCava that mentioned, yeah, we went through it wasn't a difficult discussion, but it was a discussion, you know, come to reality discussion during our board retreat where each of us really had to come to understand that, yeah, you know, the pie in the sky projects. And I will say, you know, perhaps maybe the purple line, right? That perhaps is pie in the sky, but it is still something, you know, that I would love to see go through National City at some point. I understand the reasons, right? Why it perhaps is pie in the sky at this point, but having those, having that reality check, is that the reason the cost of the plan sort of is that what led to the cost being less? Is because we had that initial discussion. It was the foundation for setting aside some of those more, you know, out of reach projects.
Yeah, so early on, we do an analysis of the what we anticipate the revenues to be for the plan, and you're right. You know, we had to be very realistic about what we could expect, and so we developed the projects in the plan accordingly with the revenues that we have. So that required us to do things like Purple Line as an example. There's a portion of the Purple Line that we would be able to construct within the life of the plan, but the whole line would not be reasonable or feasible to construct in the life of the plan. So that was moved out into the unconstrained plan, and that did reduce the cost. And then in some cases, the data and analysis that we did just showed that we didn't need heavy rail, or we didn't need to double track in a certain area, that a rapid project would suffice, and rapids are significantly less expensive and more flexible than the rail project. So those types of adjustments are what led to the lower cost in the plan. Also keep in mind, we have a shorter time frame with this plan. So the last plan we had 4 more years and 4 more years of projects to construct. This year we have a shorter time frame.
Okay. Thank you very much for all of the work, and I really appreciated the presentation today. It really did summarize everything that, you know, that I have been participating since my 2.5 years here on SANDAG. It really just almost like put a bow on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Maxon.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention to the rural area highway improvement projects, as these are considered critical to the unincorporated area. The public input and listening sessions, they do need to be where the people live. I know we've talked about that before. Be sure to have in-community sessions for all of the region's far-flung neighborhoods, as the regional plans VMT goals most negatively impact their household budgets. Currently, if you live in an unincorporated area and you need to make a 10-mile trip for an appointment, you have to decide, do I hop in my car and spend 15 minutes on the road? Or if there's even a bus available, do I spend 2 hours and 22 minutes one way to get to an appointment? That's the calculus that has to be made. And most of the time there isn't a bus available, because the few that come through the rural area to prevent extra car trips on the road might come by at 5 or 6 in the morning, and then now they won't come around again until 5 or 6 at night. So that's not realistic. My question is, how do you balance VMT reduction when not providing an alternative for the more rural and essentially geographically distant residents? How will we fairly meet the VMT goal without putting it on the backs of our disadvantaged neighbors? People move to rural areas to live in an affordable housing environment, and the VMT penalties that are being developed would eliminate this benefit and impact the livelihood of all of our rural and our unincorporated area residents. Thank you.
So there's no penalty for driving. You can, and people can still drive their car. We meet the target in the plan. I want to talk about the transit improvements for the rural communities. You're right. You mentioned that there are some buses that serve the rural communities today, and they maybe only come once a day or twice a day at most, and not at very convenient times. So for the existing services in the plan, we've increased the frequency of all of those routes. So we've also added new routes to serve the rural communities, as well as flexible fleets to serve the rural communities, as well as roadway improvement projects, primarily focused on safety. So there are quite a number of improvements in this plan, more so than in previous plans for the rural communities. And again, there is no penalty for driving. You can still drive a car, but hopefully we'll be providing you with some better alternatives, and you'll have more realistic options if we're successful in getting the funding to build the projects in this plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Fox.
Thank you. I also want to express to the SANDAG team big thanks for working so collaboratively with Caltrans and my teams there. We've definitely been working closely on planning out what that future highway network will look like and feel like for our region, developing one that's sustainable, meets our state climate goals and our operational needs, specifically as we look at the regional managed lanes network, and also working on ways to address our rural highway needs. So thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, I want to thank the SANDAG staff and our CEO. We've had so many great conversations, and I'm very appreciative of the time and the briefings and all the information. I just have to express the concern that I have of, we were looking at 2027 when we can call right on the bonds and get rid of the tolls and the 125. Then we mentioned 2030, and now we're sending it over to 2035. And I just have to mention a few things, right? In South Bay, we have a trolley line that every month moves over 2 million people. We have great projects, Otay Mesa East, that's going to create a little bit more traffic. We house the southbound people across the border that come over 100,000 people daily to work, study, tourism. And we know we need that tourism because I was in D3 during COVID, when tourism shut down at the border, and we lost millions on a weekly basis. So, and this is something that we've talked about many times when I was on MTS as a board member. You know, we bring a lot of people northbound to work, but we didn't have anything to bring them back after 11:45 p.m. And that's when we opened the 910, right? The Express South Bay bus and shuttle. But we barely did that. And I don't want the sentiment, because I've been talking to a few people from the South Bay, and I don't want the sentiment and the comments that, oh, it's because in South Bay it's not urgent. So I really want to see Caltrans, and again, I'm very appreciative of this collaboration and this open communication, but I really want to see Caltrans come back and say why it's so costly to take over a road that just seeing it is in pristine condition, lightly used condition. And I also want to see the increase of flow and traffic that's coming in the following decade, because we're talking about over a decade to retire this toll booths. And again, I don't want our community to say, well, it's because it's in the South Bay, it's not really that important or urgent. We're not loud enough. So we are very concerned, and I really, really encourage you to bring back hard facts into which this is not possible. And if possible, I would love to see this be removed as quickly as possible, because it is not fair for South Bay users that we're creating more projects, more flow. And yet from an hour and a half of wait time in the morning, how long are we going to wait additionally? So please, I beg you to reconsider and to really think about our South Bay constituents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Jones.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just have a few comments. First of all, Council President LaCava, liked your comment about private projects and private funds. I call that OPM in my city, other people's money. Always open to anything like that. I would totally support something like that. And then when we're talking about bike lanes, I want to make sure that we're talking about just the actual lanes themselves moving forward, that it's not reconstructing an entire road. It's just focusing on the actual bike lanes, and that each city or community would be able to have them the way that best fits their needs. And then microtransit. It is a home run in our city. I think I've talked about that quite a bit. I would love to see things like that even more out in the rural areas. I've been spending a lot of time out there, and I hear a lot of conversations about how can we get around within our community to doctor's visits, that sort of thing. So I'd really like to figure out how we could do a little bit better job on that. I know we're adding a lot. And I mentioned this the other night, NCTD, which we appreciate them so much. They came to our meeting and I said, we love it when we see our microtransit full. We don't like it when we see a big bus and it's not full, because it doesn't actually always take our residents where they need to get. I think that's all I had, but I just want to really focus on those microtransit connections. I think they're really helpful for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Gasterlin.
Thanks. I'll ask three related questions that add to the conversation. So the first question is, for the cross-border trolley, the US-Mexico border transit connection, it's now been moved to post 2035 and thus, or no, so it's moved to the unconstrained network. So could you clarify what is the constrained versus the unconstrained?
Yes, we are required to develop a fiscally constrained plan. So that means every project in the plan, we have to have a funding source that we could use to pay for the project in the plan. It has to be a reasonable funding source. The cross-border trolley is a project that we don't have a funding source for, and that couldn't be built within the life of the plan by 2050. But because we've heard a lot of interest for that, we put it in the unconstrained lists. The unconstrained, it's really the wish list, projects that we can't build within the time frame of the plan, but that we don't want to lose sight of as a region.
So if there were funding available, then it could be put into the constrained side. So it's not that it's delayed till 2050 or after, it's that it's not yet funded, correct?
Yes, and I don't know that it could be built by 2050. So at some point we'll have a plan that goes out past 2050. We have to go out 20 years. So the next plan will still be 2049, but the following plan will extend past 2050, and then we can start to add more projects that are longer.
I can add a little bit more, Mayor. You know, this is also a reality check in a lot of things. So we just heard Old Time Mesa East. I'll tell you, Old Time Mesa East started with a memorandum of understanding between both sides of the border in the 1990s. There's not even that. So this is an idea that we have here, or somebody has, but the Mexican government hasn't even signed up on it either on their side. So it's a concept. And look at OME again, or look at the Blue Line extension to UTC. Those projects will probably take, once they're really realized and said, this is a go, we're moving, it's going to take us at least 2 decades to materialize, at least, between project initiation document, project reports, environmental documents, design, environmental mitigation, and construction. So it's a reality check. And the responsibility that the director of planning has, and I have, is to come and provide you with a reality check on assumptions of revenues of what we know today and really schedules based on our knowledge that we have from delivering projects. So we're being as transparent as possible. So on that project, there hasn't been even the binational understanding signed with the appropriate entities. There's been a lot of discussions, forums, everybody applauds it as a great concept, but it's not there yet.
Thank you. So related to the constraint is, so we know this is a $125 billion plan, and that's for the entire time from now until 2050, 2049. So that's about $5 billion a year is the way to think about it. Is that reasonable as a way to think about it?
So we don't do year by year phasing
I know.
in the plan. So it does not mean that we'll be spending $5 billion a year because we don't look at year by year. So when you're asking if that's a reasonable assumption, I would say no, it's not. It won't play out exactly that way. Some years we'll spend more, some years we'll be spending less. It really just depends.
But if we were to implement everything that's in the plan, it would average out to $5 billion.
And it's not just projects implementation. As I mentioned before, it's all of our costs to operate and maintain the roads. It's all of the programs that we administer. It's all of the grants that we give out. It's the money that we pass through to your agencies for local streets and roads. And it's the debt that we have to pay off. So I just want to be clear that that 125 billion covers all of that.
Everything.
Some years we don't give out grants because it's an off cycle year. Some years we do. So
okay, thank you. That really helps to clarify and help us. How do we talk about this when we talk to others? The inventory to do data collection for household travel, commercial travel and vehicles, parking spaces, how much parking is available and where is it, and parking behavior was in 2022, according to the timeline. Has that been updated continuously, or is all of the data in the models that are driving this plan from 2022?
yeah, that's the baseline year for the plan. So that is we haven't done any updates to the data since then.
Okay. And then so I guess my question would be, and there's not a good way to answer it, is does that impact, how realistic the plan is or the actual calculations of greenhouse gas?
No, we have to agree and get approval for the baseline year and the data that we use early in the plan development. So we can't bring in new data at this point. That wouldn't be allowable.
So you're planning in the same way that we always do. Yeah. And then last question is, could you say a few words about parking near transit in this plan? As we heard, it's so important to be able to use transit, to be able to drive to the nearest station. The Blue Line trolley, for example, has great parking garages near the stations, but getting to them actually takes almost as much time as coming downtown.
There is money in the plan for transit station amenities. So that could be things like parking. It could be a variety of things, but we don't have specific parking spots and funding specifically for parking. It's a kind of broader pot because again, the regional plan is at that 30,000 foot level.
Thank you. Councilmember Sheehan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much to the staff for providing support. I know you guys are trying to create and play with chess and make it look like checkers for us. So many thanks to that. I do want to just follow up on Deputy Mayor Chavez's response. I always do believe that if we are creating a tax to individuals passing through, that we are very sensitive in regards to what it's for. Could we end up not having to have these, revenues for individuals? I think it's always difficult if you do have a vehicle and you're already, your income is already low and now you're having to kind of add on top of it. Every dime means something. So we should be scrutinous in regards to what it is that we're doing with this revenue and when are there opportunities for us to not have to worry about having this revenue. Different take on some of this. I have concerns in regards to us looking at our future and planning how transportation is going to go and knowing very well as I'm having conversations with those in the technology realm about flexible fleets our emerging technologies, and then autonomous vehicles. They're creating what seems like multiple fleets, like micro-sized buses to go from point A to B. That seems like it's going to supersede the first and last mile. Why am I going to hop on something to go 1 mile to go take transportation to go somewhere else, and I don't have to do anything, right? Why would I not then just hop in an autonomous vehicle in my residence and then get here to SANDAG? And if it's going to cost a little bit more, is it going to pencil out for me? It seems like these publicly traded companies that are pushing billions of dollars to get this whole infrastructure to get going are creating something that is penciling out, or I don't think they'd be creating an investment to do it. Where are we with that? How cognizant are we? And are we morphing in with this along with like the NCTDs and the MTSs?
Yes, so a couple of things. We update the plan every 4 years, and that's one of the reasons that we're required to do that, right? So that we can take into consideration new technologies, new modes, advances. And I mean, Uber and Lyft at one point, who would have thought that we would be, getting rides from our smartphones? So the opportunity to update the plan every 4 years allows us to also update our assumptions around technology. But we do include a significant amount of money for connected vehicle technology that will support autonomous vehicles. And we don't make any assumptions around whether or not flexible fleets are going to have, drivers or be driverless. It's just really a service area in the regional plan. The managed lanes are also an opportunity to help support that transition to connected and autonomous vehicles. So it's something we track. It's something that we consider. But we also have rules that we have to follow, and we have to have good data to justify the projects and investments that we're making in the plan. And at this point, it's really hard to make any firm assumptions about autonomous vehicles and how they're going to roll out and how they're going to impact the transportation system. So we keep tracking it and we keep updating our modeling tools and our assumptions. But we also have to develop a plan that our federal and state partners will consider to be like realistic.
And we're having conversations with the cities that have already implemented this. When I'm in LA, San Francisco, Phoenix, Austin, I'm seeing it. I'm hopping in Waymos and tripping out.
We're keeping tabs on all of it. In fact, I would think it was 2016, 2017, our region was designated as an autonomous vehicle proving ground, and we did a lot of work in the space. We partnered with Qualcomm. We invited the automobile manufacturers to come and do testing and share data and information with us. UCSD has a program that's doing a lot of research on this as well, and we're in close contact with them. So absolutely, we're keeping tabs.
Yeah, the pace of what we're seeing taking place and how aggressive these vehicle companies are trying to move at. I look at we used to have payphones. I don't know if you guys remember that, but we used to have payphones, and they've all been ripped out because of cell phones. And I look at bus stops and I wonder, are they all going to get ripped off in the near future because of this new technology? And I think we should be, and I don't even say it as a joke, I really do say it as the fact that, like, why would I spend an ounce of effort to get to a bus stop if I can push a button and I know that we can do it? And I'm concerned that, and a strong conversation could be had with some of the transportation departments, is that if we're subsidizing the usage of, say, buses, why don't we just subsidize the use of autonomous vehicles that can get us there, and even still pack us into places where multiple people need to go to one place to another, but it could be done in a much more streamlined situation where we don't have to congregate into a bus stop, if that makes sense. And I don't think that this is happening 20 years from now or 10 years from now. I really do feel like this is on our next regional plan update. So that's one of the considerations. And then for my area, I looked at, and I know we overlay the CMCP, the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan for North County. I flipped through that kind of in reference to what it is that we're doing here. Some of the things that, when it comes to the buses in North County, and kind of maybe what Mayor Jones was saying, is that I read us state in that plan that of North County trips, 70% stay in North County and 50% are less than 5 miles. And so that's where I get a little concerned about all the infrastructure we're doing for, let's say, for buses. I understand rail, it's there, it's not going anywhere. But, like, are we looking more at flexible fleets and those types of transports in North County where we're less dense than we are thinking about buses for considerations?
Yes, I think the whole corridor, the 78 corridor is covered in flexible fleet service areas. So that includes your community in Carlsbad.
I say that because of the Palomar aspect of the hub is, what are we trying to consider doing there that is, are we trying to do it where we're trying to like take away a lane or whatnot for buses only, or what's the end all goal from like the San Marcos to the Carlsbad coast?
No, and again, we haven't designed that facility yet, right? It's just a connection from point A to point B in the regional plan, and we'll work with you and all of the other jurisdictions on how that project gets designed. But no, the rapid projects do not necessarily need a dedicated lane. It's anything that makes the bus more fast and frequent. So that could be all door boarding, that could be transit signal priority, that could be a queue jump at an intersection, but it does not require a dedicated lane in most places.
Okay, one aspect I also want to bring up, so it's on page 120 of the North County CMCP. There's an image that shows, it shows a image of a boulevard. I think it's like a bus boulevard, right? So it's one lane for roads, one lane for only buses, and then a bike lane, correct? So is that something that we try to use as a tool to implement still?
CMCPs are required to access SB1 funding. And so we've done CMCPs for many of the major corridors in partnership with Caltrans. That project was led by Caltrans, that CMCP for the 78 corridor. I think what you're talking about was a conceptual design that was done for that plan, showing the world of possibilities. It is no commitment that there will be a project that is going to look like that in your community.
Okay. I'm scared about that one because that took place in Culver City where I was a firefighter. And so as a captain there, they put that in. And I just want to warn everybody that if you're going to decide to put in a road where one lane is for vehicles only, one lane is for bus, and then you've got a lane for bicycles, it doesn't work for a couple of reasons. One, the traffic will just bleed into the residentials or the fingers of the other roads. That's the first thing that we saw. That was a big complaint with the residents. But two, if you're an emergency vehicle and you're going code 3, where are you going to go? You get stuck, and that's what happened, and that's what happens with us now up there in West LA. And then so what we have to do is something dangerous. An emergency vehicle with its lights and sirens on has to then go right into the lane of the bus stop lane. And then what are vehicles told to do when they're seeing sirens and lights? And so we've created incidences where everything becomes a clash. And then on top of it, when I'm going there on the right lane in the bus lane, if the bus is there, then I'm locked. There's nowhere to go at that point. And then so my under 5-minute response to ensure that I can apply CPR to a patient is then 20 minutes. And that's a big critical thing, even though when we look at the image of that, what I just saw there, I was looking at something that's very hazardous to life safety. So like, I almost want to get that image yanked out of that page because of just how fearful I am of that. And so I want to make it in regards to that comment. 2 last things, and I swear I'll stop.
Okay, we got 3 more. We have 3 more people on the queue, so.
The low sand rail system and our density bonus housing does not make sense. And so it's a pain, and I want to bring it up later, and I'll bring it up later. I just want to say it makes no sense because we have tourism, we have vehicles there, there's nowhere to park, and I don't know how we can actually make this thing work out if our density is going to go up by the coastline, and we're impacting with tourism through what seems like 9 months of the year these days. And then last but not least, the 78 to 5 southbound, I'm so annoyed with that. I would love to see that thing like get more clarified so that I can tell my constituents exactly what's taking place with that project. I'm done.
Very good. All right, we're on to Mayor Duncan.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Just a few brief points I wanted to make. First of all, Antoinette, I think you did an excellent job throughout this process. As you know, I can ask direct and pointed questions at times, but I want to ensure that doesn't come across to you or to staff is not being respectful. And thank you for how hard you worked on it, as well as to our CEO. It's important to remember, especially or to be reminded for the people who weren't here back then, but we used to operate not too many years ago with constant weighted votes, not much member input from the vast majority of cities. And there's been a tremendous dynamic shift. And I think it's been better for us and certainly better for the region. The last couple of points I want to make are that we have to realize that, and the public needs to realize that a lot of what we're doing here is dictated by federal law, federal regulations, state regulations, and various grant requirements. And at times, and of course, there are parts of the plan or language in the plan and different things at times that if I was just doing it on my own with none of those restrictions, would of course do quite differently. But we have to do it. One of the main reasons, obviously, we have to do it, but I don't believe I really heard it today from anybody, and it's important for the public to know as well, is if we don't do this by when? By the end of the year, what happens? We lose funding for the projects you like. We lose funding for the projects you hate. We lose all of our funding almost. So we have to do this. Okay, this is a painful, required exercise that we have to do. My last brief comment is in regard to the Coronado Bridge complexities. The bridge has a lane that moves now. That lane primarily is moved twice a day to allow the vast amount of traffic in or out of Coronado that is not necessarily or even 10% Coronadans that live there. It's the fact that, as the number was used by Deputy Mayor Chavez, that about 100,000 passenger vehicles crossing the border. We have thousands and thousands, 80,000, 50,000, 100,000 passenger vehicles traverse Coronado daily, to a large extent because the freeway is clogged up and they can't get through. So they go through Coronado, but who is often also the main issue of use on the Coronado Bridge? It's enlisted Navy personnel. We have to remember that we have 3 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers stationed in Coronado, including all 3 of which were on island, on base last week. And these are the most powerful weapons in the world. China and Russia don't have one nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. We also have our Navy SEAL base, our AMPIB base, et cetera. So we have to ensure that that bridge works properly. And the final issue on that bridge is, of course, the long-standing desire to have a suicide barrier on the bridge. And right now we're at an interesting time frame where Caltrans is working on a design-build contract and is trying to proceed with that project so it can be finished in the next couple of years. So for all these, there's a vast variety of complexities with that bridge. So I thank Caltrans for listening to the comments from the Navy and from Coronado's and others in regard to that lane on that bridge that was proposed, particularly since it had almost no impact on the other goals that needed to be achieved in the plan. So I just wanted to thank everybody, and that's the end of my comments.
Thank you. Supervisor Aguirre.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank staff for all your work on this. It was great to hear that it wasn't just the 1,300 people that submitted comments, but thousands of real people, real everyday people that have an interest in making sure that our regional transportation plan is effective and efficient. It was really great to see that there was a lot of support for transit investments. Not lost on me was a conversation around transit amenities. That's something that we have been talking about for a long time at MTS when I used to be on the board there. Would love to see bathrooms at transit stops, at trolley stops. That's a huge need for the South Bay, for those who use the Blue Line especially to go to and from work. Microtransit, I mentioned this at the last meeting. I think I'll mention it again. Would love to see Imperial Beach included in those zones. We're lacking compared to other cities in South Bay. Also, I just want to mention regarding the microtransit argument, I don't think it has to be one or the other. It should be one and the other regarding microtransit and buses. And I'll tell you why, because my district is the poorest district in the entire county, and we have a large number of transit dependent users that are elderly. that still are working. And there's a true digital divide, according to even our own reports here at SANDAG. So not everybody has access to a smartphone, and not everybody has the luxury to just grab it and go to work. So I wouldn't want to see one replacing the other. We need both. Great to see broad support regarding climate initiatives and reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the public. Fully support continued programming for youth opportunity passes. I think that's a lifeline for us, especially in South Bay. And then lastly, I'll just close with, I do want to express my concerns delaying the SR 125 to post 2035. I think we shouldn't move the goalposts. I think we need to actually speed that up, because I have heard loud and clear from my constituents that they want to see the toll fee removed. It's an issue of equity. It's an issue that disproportionately impacts, like I said again, the district that has the highest need. Working families are hurting with the cost of living skyrocketing, and adding to their burden with a fee that is applicable only to one area of the county, I think is, it's not equitable. So I would be supportive of moving back and expediting that date. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Picus.
Thank you again. Well, I looked over the proposal last night. I didn't see it on my iPad this morning. It's vast. And I just think, I compare it to our little village or town municipality, and basically everything you've got has 3 more zeros after it. So it is, it's a vast, visionary plan. So I give you credit for that. I also want to thank Mayor Duncan of Coronado for pointing out that we have to pass this plan, because otherwise we don't get federal money. So we need to have a plan in place, whether we like it or not. So good for that. And reflect the similar frustration that Mayor Chavez had of that sometimes we in East County feel like we're kind of ignored by SANDAG. And that's why I want to make these comments today. Is I looked over that plan last night, and our biggest concern, and the concern of everybody I talked to in my town, is Highway 67, State Highway 67, and its safety problems. And the fact that there's been over 6 fatalities this year along that stretch of road, yet nothing's been done for a long time. And in this plan, there are some improvements over the next 10 years, but it seems a little too small and too delayed. And I wanted to point that out. And I know that, you got to offset it with greenhouse gases and all that, but, the people that drive it every day think it's almost obscene that they have to trade their safety for this climate change goal. And then they ask me, hey, again, what's the whole point of this extra bus line from Ramona to Sabre Springs Transit Hub that no one's asked for, when everybody's been screaming about Highway 67? So representing my constituency, I wanted to get that on the record. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I see nobody else on the board. Thank you everybody for your comments. Most appreciated. This was just a discussion item, so we have no vote today, no action. So I will conclude our meeting, and the next Board of Directors meeting will be October 10th at 10:30 a.m. following the Executive Committee meeting, which starts at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.